Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto hates Kakashi and Jiraiya part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto Uzumaki was standing at the gates of Konoha. It was almost midnight and was thinking about everything that had happened and what he could do now. His choices being he could stay in Konoha and hope things would get better, or he could leave the village that has been causing him nothing but frustration and grief. Now you might be wondering what caused the blonde shinobi to end up at this point in his life. Well, it all started a couple months ago. Flashback. For the first time in his life, Naruto was truly happy. The villagers no longer hated him, they saw him as a hero. In fact, he was one of the top ninja in the village despite only being 15. The Sound Village and the Akatsuki were gone and defeated, and he finally had his pink-haired angel. It might have taken him over 10 years, but he finally had Sakura. "Hey Naruto!" someone yelled out. Naruto turned around to see Sakura running up to him. "Hey Sakura-chan, what's up?" He gave her a fox smile. "We just got a report that Sasuke was seen near the Fire Country border. Let's go!" she yelled, excited. They both rushed out of the village to get him before he got away again. When they arrived back in the village late at night with their mission completed, they were both overjoyed that they finally had Sasuke back. 2 days after the retrieval mission, Naruto was called into Tsunade's office after being requested for a mission. "Naruto, I think you're ready for your first solo S-rank mission, and it should take about a month. Do you accept?" Tsunade asked him. He happily accepted the mission and went to go pack. Then he stopped by Sakura's house to say goodbye. He thought everything would be okay, but he didn't know just how wrong he was. A month later. "Finally done, it feels great to be back home," Naruto said to himself as he ran all the way to the Hokage's office and handed in his mission report. "Did you need anything else, Bachan?" Naruto asked, grinning. "Don't call me that," Tsunade yelled at him. When she calmed down, she dismissed him. "Well, I'm gonna go tell Sakura-chan that I'm back now, so bye." As he went to leave, she stopped him for a second. "Naruto, wait!" she yelled out to him, standing up. He turned and looked at her. "Yes?" he asked, looking at her. She stopped for a second and then sat back down. "Nothing, never mind." Naruto looked at her confused, then rushed out. Jiraiya appeared next to her. "Why didn't you tell him?" he asked his old teammate. Tsunade sighed and told him because he would have never believed me, he needs to see for himself. Naruto was looking around the village for Sakura, unable to find her. "Well, there's one place I haven't checked, but why would she be there?" he thought to himself, heading towards the Uchiha district. When he arrived at Sasuke's house, he was assaulted with the sound of people being intimate. His heart froze for a moment. She wouldn't. He hoped. It was just some girl Sasuke had picked up off the street. That's when he heard it. "Oh Sasuke, faster! Harder Sasuke!" he heard Sakura yell. His heart broke into a million pieces when he heard her. He turned to leave and he left a note for them. "Sakura, I know what you've done and I hope you're happy. I guess you finally got your dream." From Naruto. He quickly left the house with the pink ring he had been planning to give Sakura. He headed to a nearby bar and got drunk for the first time in his life. End flashback. Now you might be thinking that couldn't have pushed Naruto to where he is now, but the sad thing was the same thing happened 9 more times. Each time it caused him to drink more and take higher risk missions. After his heartbreaking revelation with Sakura, it became even worse when she told him coldly that they should just be friends. She wasn't, however, expecting his response. He looked down and quietly whispered, "You bitch." The next thing she knew, she was punched in her cheekbone hard. Then she woke up in a hospital weeks later, in casts. After Sakura, Ino was his beautiful flower girl. He got to know her better when he went to go get flowers at her family's flower shop for the third. They became close friends, then lovers. When Naruto left on another diplomat mission, this time for 2 weeks, when he came back the same thing happened, except this time Ino was with Shikamaru. Naruto left the same note, and left with another ring. Every time he left the same thing happened. Next was Tenten and Niji, then Hinata and Kiba. Naruto thought he would have better luck with some of the older women, thinking experience would make it to where they would know better than to cheat on him. Boy, was he wrong. First it was Kurenai and Asuma, Shizen and Yamoto, Enko and Irika, Hana and Kakashi, and then Tsunade and Jiraiya. The last one, however, hit him the hardest. Ayam, the girl he thought he could always trust. The one he had known since he was a kid. He thought she would have stayed faithful, but he was wrong. Flashback. Naruto had just gotten back from a 2-month mission and left his report with Tsunade. He no longer called her Tsunade him, or even Bachan once he found out that she had been cheating on him. He walked home and saw Ayam there waiting for him. She ran up to him. "Hi Naruto-kun." She screamed as she tried to hug him. Naruto sidestepped her and walked into their house. Ayam looked confused. "Naruto?" She called out to him, and then followed him inside. He didn't say anything as he took off his armor and sat down on his couch thinking on his next action. She followed him and stood while he sat down. He looked at her and asked how long? She looked even more confused and asked him, "What do you mean, Naruto-kun?" He threw the empty bottle at her, making it shatter and break to the left of her. "Don't call me that." He looked at her again and asked, "How long have you been fucking him?" Ayam had a surprised look on her face. Naruto looked at her and continued, "Oh, you didn't think I would notice? Please, I could smell him on you a mile away." Ayam suddenly looked sad and started crying. "Please Naruto, it's not like that." Naruto got up and started yelling, "Please, you're just like every other girl I've dated, a fucking liar. Now get the fuck out of my house, I'll send you your things tomorrow." She didn't move from her spot. "I said get the fuck out of my house." This time he added killing intent. She ran out of the room that time. He sniffed the air again. Shit. Naruto got up and saw Ayam by the front door. He handed her a couple 100,000 ryo. "What's this for?" she asked. "For the baby, and tell Chuji that I hope he knows what he was getting into." He then slammed the door in her face. He sat down and started thinking, feeling the 10 rings in his pocket. He also never went to Ichiraku's when he knew Ayam was going to be there. Flashback end. After that, he always carried the 10 rings around with him, and if anyone said anything negative about the rings or about him, he responded by pinning them into the nearest wall, daring them to say more. He hated more and took more dangerous missions. The only thing he got less of was sleep, considering that every time he fell asleep he only had dreams about the people he hated. Then one day, as he came back from a double S-class mission and went to ask for another one, he was surprised. In the room were all the girls, including Tsunade, sitting in a circle. Naruto took deep breaths to remain calm and then spoke, "What's this all about?" Tsunade spoke directly to Naruto. "Naruto, please take a seat." He did, just sitting in between Sakura and Ayam, the ones that hurt him the most. Tsunade then spoke again. "Naruto, we're worried about you. You barely sleep, you won't talk to anyone, and you're running yourself ragged with all these missions." Tsunade finished. He just sat there unfazed by their looks of concern, which he found funny as they didn't give a shit before, and replied, "Thanks for the concern. Can I have that double S-class mission now?" Tsunade got annoyed and looked at Naruto, then told him, "Naruto, grow up and be a man. Face the facts, and stop drowning yourself in misery." With all the control over his anger he had acquired over the years, Naruto calmly got out of his seat and threw his chair at the wall, the others watching it shatter to pieces. He then turned and looked at all the girls. "Who the fuck are you, Tio? Tell me how Tio be a man. I have grown up, Tsunade, and I've seen all of you for what you are. Lying, backstabbing, cheating bitches. And I've already faced the fact that I was cheated on by every single one of you, and I was betrayed by all of you. I was just a replacement for them." He then pulled the rings out of his pockets and showed them to the girls. "Do you know what these were supposed to be for? What they stood for? I was going to ask each and every one of you to marry me at some point in my life." He then showed them the rings one by one. Pink was for Sakura, yellow for Ino, brown for Tenten, blue for Hinata, red for Kurenai, black for Shizen, purple for Enko, white for Hana, green for Tsunade, and orange for Ayam. 10 names for 10 fingers I worked to the bone for. And every time I went to ask you to marry me, I found each and every one of you in another man's bed. He then punched a giant hole in the wall and saw every guy that stole his girls in the room next door. "How the fuck do you guys get the balls to steal my girls right before I ask them to marry me? Also, if I ever see any of you ever again, I will kill you." Naruto then walked out the door. Nobody tried to stop him. He immediately went to a bar and got drunk for the second time in his life. A few weeks later, he packed up everything that was his in a sealing scroll, went to the Hokage's office and put everything that belonged to his mom and dad, after he had overheard Jiraiya and Tsunade talking about them and his heritage. He had taken everything from both the Uzumaki and Namake's estates weeks ago. He then walked to the village gates. "And that's where we came in. So he can stay or leave." "Naruto!" He heard his name being called out by multiple people, turned around and saw his former fiancées running towards him, and for once in his life decided to be selfish. He quickly replaced himself with an exploding shadow clone, and when the girls were close enough made the clone flip them off with both hands and say "bye bitches," then it exploded, throwing them back a couple feet. his headband left behind with a slash through the village's symbol. Naruto, watching from a distance, enjoyed the view and then proceeded to run as far away from the village as possible. He had a couple ideas on where to go but would see what happened. Naruto Uzumaki was currently heading to the land of waves. He decided to take a break and sat down to concentrate, go inside his mind and talk to a certain someone. "Hey Q-chan! You awake?" he yelled outside of the cage with the seal. His prisoner, the nine-tailed fox Kyubi, looked at the blonde. "What do you want, Kit?" "I was having a nice nap." The fox then shrunk down to its human form. Now what no one knew but Naruto was that the Kyubi was actually a female. Naruto himself just found this out a couple weeks before he had left the village. Flashback. The second time Naruto had gone to a bar and got drunk, he had overdone it, and once he got home and closed the door, he collapsed and fell unconscious. He then found himself in his mindscape, right outside the Kyubi's cage. "What do you want for ball?" he asked rudely. But when he looked into the cage, he didn't see the Kyubi. What he saw was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Her hair, which was a dark red, reached all the way down to her rear end. She looked to be a little shorter than Naruto at about 5 feet tall. Her skin had no blemishes and was a little darker than Naruto, which in his opinion made her look exotic. Her eyes were blood red with slits instead of pupils. She had an hourglass figure. Her chest looked like it could easily rival Tsunade's and defied gravity. He looked down between where her thighs meet, and one more thing that he noticed: she was naked, which sent him back with a nosebleed. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, holding his nose. "And put some clothes on." The woman smirked and replied, "What's the matter, Kit? I would assume that you were gay, but then again, if you were, you wouldn't have gotten that nosebleed. So then I'm assuming you like what you see?" she asked playfully. He then thought about what she said, "Only one person calls me Kit." His eyes widened and he looked at the woman, surprised. "KQB?" The woman clapped her hands and looked at him. "Well done, Kit. It took you long enough to figure it out. I mean, who else could it be?" He then tried to reply but couldn't find the right words. "Why, you're a girl?" he asked, being the only thing going through his mind at the time. She looked at him and scoffed. "Is there a reason that is hard to believe?" she asked with a little glare, hinting that he would be in trouble if he answered wrong. Seeing the look in her eyes, he just shook his head. "No, but I mean, why didn't you ever tell me that you were a girl? I assumed you were a guy with the way your voice was when you were big," he told her honestly. She looked at him and replied, "It was mainly because of my demon 4, but it's also because back when I was free I liked to use that voice to really scare people," she told him with a playful smirk. Naruto nodded, understanding, thinking it was funny as well to an extent. "So did you want something?" he asked, trying not to stare at her body. She rolled her eyes and a beautiful kimono the same color as her eyes appeared on her. "Yes, I wanted to talk to you about the way your life has been lately. Why do you bother staying here, Kit? You'll never find love here because no one here deserves a loyal, honest person like you. Hasn't that been clear enough already, Kit?" He just stood there and tried to think of something to say to her. "Well, you have a point there. But why do you care? I mean, what's in it for you?" he asked, confused. She sighed. "Well, Kit, believe it or not, I'm not as evil or bloodthirsty as most of your kind makes me out to be. I wasn't even in control of myself when I attacked your village. I'm actually someone who likes to avoid battles as much as possible." She looked down sad. "But if you still hate me for the way your life was because of me, I understand." He stood there thinking for a moment, and asked her then, "Why did you attack the village?" She looked down and remembered her last day of freedom. "Well, Kit, before being sealed I used to live in a mountain big enough for me in Fire Country. And one day while I was sleeping I heard something outside my cave but didn't think much of it, as I thought only someone with a death wish would attack me alone." She sighed at how arrogant she used to be, but suddenly I was woken up when someone called out to me, and when I opened my eyes the last thing I remember seeing was someone with an orange mask with a swirl and Sharingan eyes." She looked at him with a sad look. "Next thing I knew I was in here wondering what happened." She finished her story. He sat down for a second, taking it all in. "So you were being controlled by someone with the Sharingan? But is that even possible?" he asked. She nodded and continued. "Only one person had the power to control the Bijou with the Sharingan, and that person was Madara Uchiha," she told him, watching his eyes widen. "But he would have to be close to over 100 years old by then, wouldn't he?" he asked her, thinking about how Madara was one of the founders of Konoha. She thought about what he said and came to a conclusion. "Well, Kit, he does have the immortal Sharingan, and no one else really knows what its abilities are except Madara. For all we know, it grants the owner immortality." She finished, and then she walked over to the edge of the cage, standing right behind the door, and continues. "Kit, you might not know this, but there are people who do love you. Many of them, however, are far from where you are now. So I think the best thing to do right now is to leave this forsaken place. she told him, getting to the point. He got a look of shock on his face. How do you know there are people who care about me, even love me, not from here? He asked, confused. She looked at him lovingly, with true love in her stare, something he had never seen but thought he had. Because kid, I know and can tell what a girl is feeling better than you can. I for one am someone who will always be here for you. I'm even working on something that will allow me to get out of here without killing both of us in the process. You would even get to keep all my chakra, all my power would be yours. You would be able to give me more if you ever think I need it though. The same goes for any future mates you might have. She stopped there, letting him take everything she told him in. He stared at her, trying to find any signs of deception or trickery, but he couldn't find any, so he decided to sit and think about what she had suggested to him. If I do leave like you're saying I should, won't they make me a missing nin? And where would I go? Where am I going to sleep? What about food? He ended with the questions, looking distraught. She sighed, starting to get a headache. Kid, to answer all your questions. First off, yes, they'll more than likely make you a missing nin, an S-ranked one if the council has any say in it. We'll probably go to all the places where I believe there is a mate for you, which means we would be going to the land of waves first. If you get there quick enough, I'm sure you can sleep at the old drunk's house, and they'll most likely be willing to give you food also. She finished and saw that he looked more relaxed now. He sat there and thought about his choices for what seemed like hours. He then looked up at her and replied, okay, Q-chan. I guess you're right. I never am going to find happiness here. So I'll take everything that belonged to my parents, then I'll leave in the next couple weeks, okay? He told her and waited for a response. She smiled and told him, okay, Kit. By the way, I don't think this village deserves anything from the Namikaze or Uzumaki clans. So you should take everything from both estates. You're going to need a lot of storage scrolls, and big ones too. I want you to take everything and anything that isn't attached to the ground. But if it represents the clan in any way, take it, understood? She asked him, finishing. He had started taking notes when he knew he wasn't going to remember everything she had told him, and looked at his work, then showed it to her. Is that everything you said? She took the notepad from him and overlooked what he wrote. She looked up after a couple minutes and smiled. Yes, Kit, it's exactly what I said. I guess you're a good listener when you want to be. She smiled and handed the notepad back to him. Naruto then grabbed the notepad and made sure to remember everything, then looked at Kyubi. Well, is there anything else you needed to tell me, or is that it? He asked, getting up. She stood there thinking for a second, then replied, no, Kit, that's all for now, but if you need anything from me or need my input on something, you know how to get me. She said, getting up also. Naruto then walked over to her and surprised her with his next action. Okay, see ya later, Q-chan. He then went over to her and kissed her quickly on the cheek, then left. After he left, she stood there surprised and blushed, only being able to say 3 words, stupid blonde baka. End flashback. So what did you think of my big exit? He asked his best friend with pride. She smiled back at him. I thought it was flashy, exciting, but most importantly, those bitches got what they deserved. She replied, saying the last few words coldly. Naruto laughed a little at the response. So how far would you say until we arrive at our destination? She thought it over. Probably a couple more hours if you keep going, she told him. He smiled and did his usual farewell of kissing her on the cheek. Okay, see ya later, Q-chan. He disappeared, and when he was back outside, he started running again, hoping to get to his destination before the sun was down. Back in Konoha, Tsunade and the other girls were all in the hospital. They were all fine, nothing critical. The entire village found out about the girls, Naruto's leaving, and why he left. Thanks to a note and his notebook, diary, he left for Konohamaru. He left and made copies of specific parts of the details and spread it around the village. Everyone who thought that Naruto was a hero now despised the girls and thought they deserved what happened to them. While some of the town who still hated Naruto for holding the Kyuubi was happy that the demon was now out of their village. The only people who bothered to visit the girls were the boyfriends. Even their own families were disappointed in them. While excluding Sakura's mom, who was happy about what her daughter did to the demon boy, the other girls' parents were disappointed in what they did to Naruto, telling them they should have just told them the truth once he got back instead of cheating on him. A couple of the girls were slapped, and the boys were hated with the fact of what they went and did to Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya weren't worried about Naruto. They said that he would be back. They said that Naruto was overreacting and that the only thing that was wrong was how they broke up with Naruto and what he did to them, so the other girls were convinced that they only did one thing wrong. This in turn caused a lot of fights and arguments in the village. The girls were also hated more once it was found out they thought they did absolutely nothing wrong. Naruto noticed that the sun was setting and it was starting to get dark. Man, I thought I had more time to get to village. Q-chan, I thought you said I would make it Kyuubi side, Kid, if you would look closer. We've arrived at our destination. She then noticed something else using her ability to see through his eyes. Kid, isn't this bridge that old drunk built? Naruto stopped and looked more closely at the bridge and then saw a plaque and walked over to read it. He stood in front of the plaque and read aloud, "We hereby name this monument the Great Naruto Bridge in honor of the one who gave our village strength, courage, and hope." When he was done reading it, he got a big grin on his face. "I didn't think I was that big an impact on this village." Kyubi was smiling. "Of course you did, Kit. You're the one who was able to make the villagers stand up to the bandits and run them out of their town after all." He thought about it for a second and couldn't help but agree with her. "I guess you have a point there. But I didn't think they'd go and name their bridge after me." He started walking into the village. "Kit, once we get into a room, I want you to put up a privacy seal." He slowly nodded but asked, confused, "Okay, but why Q-chan?" She sighed. "Just do it. I'll explain later, okay?" He nodded and began running to the village. When he arrived in the village, he smelled something that, in his opinion, smelled like the ocean. He knew the village was surrounded by water, but this smell was coming from inside the village, not outside of it. "Q-chan, do you smell that, or am I just imagining things?" he asked her, confused. She smiled. "Well, Kid, it seems like one of the girls I told you about is in this village," she told him with a smirking in his mind. He thought for a moment, "But the only female I've actually met or talked to in this village was Inari's mom, Tsunami." "Q-chan," he told her, confused, which only made her sigh. "I swear he is so dense and oblivious when it comes to the opposite gender," she thought to herself. Meanwhile, in the land of waves, a woman with dark blue hair was walking with her son and her father as they were heading home after shopping for groceries. She had been thinking about a certain blonde over the years. She fell in love with him when he saved her and her son from being taken as hostages when their village had been under Gato's control. She knew that she couldn't have confessed to him when they first met because she knew that at the least people would have questioned her sanity with their age difference. She tried dating men in her village to get over him and it didn't work. She always told herself that if she ever saw him again that she would admit her love to him, but what if he didn't like her because she was older? She had been thinking about him ever since he left, and was thinking about him more every day. She couldn't even look at other men the way she thought about him, so they would break it off with her when she wouldn't let out, as she put it. She was so caught up in her thoughts she didn't notice the person coming her way very fast. "Look out!" She heard someone yell as the last thing she saw was a yellow blur when she was knocked over. She waited to hit the ground, but instead it felt like she was being held, so she opened her eyes and what she saw made her believe she had been knocked out when she hit the ground and was dreaming. She saw Naruto, but he looked much more mature and in her opinion more handsome. She also noticed that he had made a shadow clone to catch the groceries. "Are you okay, Tsunami-chan?" he asked her, concerned. She couldn't respond as she was too busy staring into his cerulean eyes. "And Naruto-kun?" She was set down on the ground slowly, never taking her eyes off his. "Sorry about that, Tsunami-chan. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going," and he was cut off immediately when she walked over to him and planted her lips on his. He didn't do anything to reciprocate as he was too shocked. When she was done and saw the stares that her son and father were giving her, she got up and ran to their house, forgetting the groceries that Naruto had caught. All three of them stood there shocked and confused. Naruto was the one to break the silence. "What just happened?" Naruto asked with a pause. "Is that how she usually greets people, or am I just an exception?" he asked them, trying to lighten the mood. Inari and Tazuna just stared at him and then ran after Tsunami. Before Tazuna left, however, he grabbed Naruto and dragged him to their house as Naruto followed, confused. At Tazuna's house. When they all arrived at the house, they noticed that Tsunami's door was locked. "Is she taking a nap or something?" Naruto asked, looking at the Tazuna. He and Inari quickly agreed with him as they all went downstairs to get something to eat. When they sat down, Tazuna suddenly realized something and stopped what he was doing and looked at Naruto. "I just thought of something. What are you doing here anyways, Naruto?" he asked, looking at him. "We didn't send for any missions." Naruto slurped up the noodles that were in his mouth and sighed without looking up. "It's a long story. One I don't feel like repeating, so let's wait until Tsunami-chan is here too. For now, is there a room where I can rest?" Inari got up and showed Naruto to the guest room. Once Inari left, he laid all of his things down, put advanced privacy seals around the room, then went to sleep to talk to Kyubi. Mindscape. Naruto arrived inside his mind. "Q-chan? You there?" He walked to the cage as she appeared to be concentrating hard on something. "Yeah, kid, I'm here, I'm just getting ready," she told him, sitting on the ground in a calm tone. He looked at her, confused. "Getting ready for what?" She looked up at him after she was done. "What would you say if I found out a way to let me have a body outside without killing either of us?" Naruto had a big grin after hearing that. "You serious, Q-chan? What would I have to do? Tell me so we can get it over with," he asked, excited. She smiled at how happy he was at the thought of her being out of her cage. "Well, Kit, the first you would have to do is rip the bottom half of the seal off when I tell you to, and I will handle the rest, okay, Kit?" He nodded happily and put a hand on the seal and waited. She made sure everything was ready. "Then now, Kit." As soon as she told him, he ripped the seal in half and was thrust out of mind. Outside. Naruto opened his eyes and he didn't see anyone else around Q-chan. He looked down disappointed. I guess it didn't work. He however spoke too soon when someone hugged him from behind. Why do you look so sad, Naruto-kun? He heard someone say seductively behind him. When he turned around he was blown back by a massive nosebleed. Whoops, sorry Naruto-kun, I guess my clothes didn't come out with me. Oh well, we can buy me some clothes later. He got up and without looking at her tossed her a jacket that was big enough to cover her up to her knees. Once she was covered he looked at her. It looks like it worked, Q-chan. He then thought for a moment, but I can't go around calling you QB or Q-chan, he said concerned. Just call me Kiyomi, she told him, interrupting his train of thought. Pure beauty? He asked, thinking over her choice of a name. You don't think I'm beautiful? She asked, pretending to be disappointed. Naruto kissed her forehead and smiled at her. I love you, Kiyomi-chan. He pulled the red ring he owned out of his bag and gave it to her. She happily took it, and once she put it on, she noticed that Naruto had fallen asleep. I will always love you too, Naruto-kun, sleep well. She then grabbed a blanket and covered both of them, then she fell asleep with him. Back in Konoha. Tsunade and the rest of the girls were finally released from the hospital, and went back to their respective houses along with their boyfriends. Some of the boys had been disowned from their clans, Niji, Chuji, Shikamaru, and Kiba. They had also lost respect from their friends who had nothing to do with Naruto's abandonment of the village, namely Lee and Shino. They both quit their teams and requested a 2-cell team, stating they could no longer trust their former teammates. When the younger girls returned to their homes, however, they didn't get the welcome they had been expecting. While most of them. Sakura's house. Sakura Haruno had just arrived at her house with her boyfriend Sasuke Uchiha, but they both had noticed it was too quiet and they could feel other people in her house while they were preparing for what they thought was an ambush. They didn't expect what had really been on the other side. It was a surprise party that Sakura's parents along with some other villagers threw, congratulating her on helping get rid of the demon. She had never felt happier from being acknowledged. Ino's house. Ino and Shikamaru had been married after Shikamaru's clan disowned him from the clan along with the other males who had been disowned from their respective clans. But when Ino arrived at her house, she hadn't been expecting her parents and other important clan members to be in front of her house. She also hadn't been expecting to be beaten by her clan and parents, who then gave her all her belongings, stating she no longer was a part of the clan, and she no longer lived there, or had parents. Only one thought was going through her mind before she blacked out, being carried by Shikamaru, who had been held back while she was being beaten. What the fuck did I do? Hinata's house. When Hinata Hyuga had arrived at her house, she was greeted by her father and her sister, who then proceeded to beat the shit out of her. Then the rest was the same of what happened to Ino, only Hinata had all her limbs temporarily disabled thanks to her former father. She slowly blacked out as Kiba quickly took her back to the hospital. Tenten's house. When Tenten arrived at her home, she noticed a couple things. Her house had been vandalized. Her items, scrolls, weapons, and other belongings were stolen. The only thing she found was a note saying she had been disowned. She then fell on her ass, confused. What the hell did I do to deserve this? Tsunade's office. Out of the two older females who had suffered, Tsunade was the one who had never expected how severe her consequences would have been from her actions. She had lost a lot of respect from her ninja and Umbu, who had respected Naruto, the clan heads, and every civilian who had not seen Naruto as a demon. She was in serious trouble. When other countries had gotten wind of everything, Konoha lost some of its allies and resources. The sand villages Kazakagegara cut off all communication and trades from Konoha. The land of Snow's Princess Koiki also cut off all communication and stopped the technology trade she had with Konoha. She lost trade from the land of waves, and more places that had prospered and had better lives because of Naruto. Ayam's house. When Ayam had gotten home, she saw her father in front of their house with a suitcase and a look of disappointment. He quickly told her she was no longer allowed in his house, she was no longer allowed to work at the stand, and before she asked said he already had someone else to help him with the stand. Pissed but depressed at the same time, Ayam grabbed the suitcase and left. Naruto Uzumaki woke up feeling a weight on his chest and was still half asleep. Wow, that was some dream. When he took more notice to the weight on his chest, he was confused. What is this? With his eyes still closed, he wrapped his hand around what was on him and felt something soft. What's this? He squeezed more and didn't stop until he heard a moan. Naruto-kun, not so rough. If you want to go again, just ask. He immediately stopped what he was doing and opened his eyes to see a nude girl in front of him. Q-chan? He said, confused. She rolled her eyes. Remember, Naruto-kun, we gave me a new name so people wouldn't get scared of me and know who I am. My name is Kiyomi, not Kyubi and not Q-chan, she said, smiling warmly at him. He thinks of his current situation he's in for a second. So last night wasn't a dream? He asks, still half asleep, while she nods, then hugs him. No, Naruto-kun, it wasn't a dream. I am and will always be here for you, she tells him with a loving smile. He smiles and hugs her back. I'm so glad it wasn't a dream. After she had reassured him that he hadn't been dreaming, they took turns with the shower. But while Naruto was getting dressed after he had taken his shower, he heard the bathroom door open and was shocked to see Kyubi nude and was thrown back from another nosebleed. Why aren't you wearing anything, Kiyomi-chan? She looked down and then looked back at him, smiling. What's wrong, kid? It's not like it's anything you haven't seen before, she said before making a kimono appear on her using her chakra. When they had finished getting ready, they both headed downstairs smelling breakfast. When they walked downstairs, Naruto was greeted by Inari and Tazuna, who didn't look up from their food. Tsunami was currently making breakfast for Naruto and hadn't seen the two new people yet. Tazuna was the first person to notice the new person in the house. Hey Gaki, who's this and why is she in the house? Better yet, when did she get here? He asked him, confused. Naruto decided that the truth would be better. Okay, now that you're all here. As you three are some of the only people left in the world that I can trust, I'll tell you everything that has happened in my life. Every last detail. He paused for a moment. I just hope you don't betray my trust like everyone in my former village did. The three flinched at hearing that, wondering what happened, but didn't say anything or ask about what he was talking about. Kiyomi and Tsunami sat down with Inari and Tazuna. Hours later. When Naruto was finally done telling his life story, at least up to the point of why he left the village, he was met with two different reactions from the three in front of him. Tazuna and Inari looked pissed and about ready to kill someone, while Tsunami was in tears. Naruto waited and then he told them how Kiyomi was the Kyubi, but relaxed once he assured them she wouldn't hurt them. Well, when I was coming close to the village, I smelled something that smelled like the ocean, and according to Kiyomi-chan, a girl who loves me is in this village. Once he said this, Kiyomi looked at Tsunami, who just blushed. Everyone except Naruto caught this. Well, you have any idea who you're looking for, Naruto? Tazuna asks, taking peeks at his daughter out of the corner of his eye. Naruto just shrugged. I honestly don't know, but Kiyomi-chan said that all the girls are people I have met and interacted with before, and that they all fell in love with me after I helped them. Tazuna looked at his daughter once again. Well, you helped everyone in this village when Gato was here. Do they have to know you personally or be a certain age? Naruto simply thought on these questions, then looked at Kiyomi. Kiyomi-chan, I don't know how to answer these questions. Do you know? Kiyomi froze for a second. No, they can be of any age, although they do have to know you personally. They can't just know about you, she answered him calmly. At this, Tazuna was really getting suspicious. Kiyomi then looked over to Tsunami. Now Tsunami, why don't you tell the rest of us why you acted the way you did yesterday? Once being questioned about her behavior, she started getting nervous but was pulled out of it by a hand being placed on her shoulder gently. She turned around to see Naruto smiling at her. Go ahead, Tsunami-chan, tell us what's wrong. Tsunami took a deep breath and said to everyone looking down, I know who the girl is that loves Naruto. It's me. Inari's jaw dropped and Tazuna dropped the sake bottle he had been holding and spit out what sake was left in his mouth. What? Tazuna screamed. Naruto just sat amazed that he had an older woman who loved him and that it was Tsunami of all women. Inari just sat there thinking everything over. But what about how much older you are than him, Ka-san? Inari thought. Kiyomi coughed to get everyone's attention. Once they claim each other should they choose to, she will become younger with the demon chakra being inserted into her body. She will never die unless Naruto does first. She will have an excellent immune system, and will heal quickly just like Naruto-kun, she said, answering Inari's question. Tsunami eyes grew wide at this information. How much younger will I be and what will happen to my body physically? It's not like I've looked like this since I was 16. Kiyomi was able to relieve stress from this question as well. You will lose all blemishes, wrinkles and anything else you don't want. You will lose all white or gray hair you may have, you will be a little shorter, and you'll be stronger and faster. You won't really be a threat unless we properly train you, and you might be in pain at times when the chakra from you being mated to Naruto grows in your body. I don't know if you will be able to use elemental jutsu, but you should be able to use the basic stuff at least, she told Tsunami, never breaking eye contact with her. Tsunami looked at her son and father. What do you guys think? Tazuna sighed. All I really want is for you to be happy. If this is what you want, then I'm okay with it. He then smiled at her and looked at Inari. When Inari noticed that both of his family members were looking at him, he only had one thing to say. If you go through with this, does that mean Naruto will be my two-san? He asked, looking at his mom and Naruto. Naruto thought on this, looked at Kiyomi, and when she nodded he turned back to the younger boy. Yes, I will be. Inari's eyes grew from hearing this and jumped to hug them both. Then I'm okay with it. After hearing her family's opinions of her being with Naruto, she started to cry from happiness and hugged both of them. Naruto just sat there and smiled. I never would have guessed that I had left such an impression on Tsunami-chan. While he was in thought, Tazuna went up to him and placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder and snapped him out of it. When he looked up at him, he was grabbed and hugged by Tazuna and Inari. Welcome to our family, Naruto. Naruto hugged again and had a couple tears fall. His life was turning around completely, and he just knew it was only going to get better. Back in Konoha, all the girls were back to being as healthy that they could be, which wasn't saying much considering how badly they had been beaten, and were with their husbands. Ayam and Hannah were the only older women there because the others moved in with their husbands into their own houses, except their houses were nice, and they were making more money. The rest of them had to live in the same house after being disowned. Why isn't Sakura suffering like the rest of us? Ino asked coldly to no one in particular. Hinata was the one to respond to this because her parents are civilians who thought of Naruto as a demon, so they are proud of her, and how she finally got rid of the demon that was a curse to this village, Hinata said, quoting Sakura's parents with venom in her tone. Tenten growled, well, that's bullshit. While we're here in this dirty, old house barely making enough to feed all of us. Sakura is living the same life, if not a bit better, that she had before all this happened. Hannah was pissed. Me and Kiba were both disowned by our clan. So who the hell is going to take care of the clan now? I'm pretty sure my former mother isn't going to live forever. Kiba spoke up at this last. I heard she had a new romantic interest and they were working on producing a new heir, he told his sister without looking up. Shikamaru sighed. This has all been a drag. Ino gave him a look which clearly said, is that all you can say? Niji looked up and sighed, and with almost all our treaties and allies gone, Konoha is in big trouble. I mean, I didn't think Naruto had made that big an impact on other villages. They all sighed at this. Meanwhile, some big political leaders and powerful people were in a meeting. So how are we going to make Konoha pay for what they did to Naruto-kun? A beautiful blonde-haired priestess asked. A black-haired woman from the land of spring spoke next. We won't make the entire village suffer, but mainly the bitches that cheated on him and the ones who hurt him, even though that would leave only so many civilians. The next one to speak was a woman with very long russet red hair and jade green eyes. Her hair covered her right eye. I say we go after the pink-haired girl first. I hear she hasn't suffered at all besides from what Naruto did to her before he left. A former kunoichi from Kumogakure who had blonde hair was next. I agree, and she should suffer the most as she was the first girl to betray him for that traitorous Uchiha. The next girl had bright green hair and pink eyes. She wore a high white shirt, armlets, and a fishnet waistband. She also wore a /takigakure forehead protector on her arm. I would have to say the only woman we can't touch is Tsunade, but I think she's already having a hard enough time as it is, wouldn't you say so, Kazekage? A red-haired young man looked up, his sister next to him. She also had blonde hair, and she carried a giant fan on her back. She spoke up. Yes, and we have gotten many more missions now that Konoha is hated and doesn't have any more allies except us, but now we'll only help them if the problem affects both of us. Her brother was thinking to himself about how to kill the people who dared to hurt his best friend. The next woman was a beautiful redhead, who with violet eyes. We will be killing those stupid council heads Danzo, Hamura, and Koharu, right? I want to make them pay for ruining my Sochi's life, she asked with a fiery look in her eyes. The next girl there to speak was a woman who has short blue hair and amber eyes. She also wore a large sapphire paper flower in her hair. I would like to be one to kill Danzo, as from what I have heard he was the one who made Naruto-kun's life hell and was also the one that had the execution sentence taken off the Uchiha. The last girl to speak was a younger girl with reddish-brown hair and slightly thick eyebrows and blue eyes, and had a mole under her left eye. Well, I just want to hurry up and see Naruto-kun again, she said, blushing. The older redhead spoke up again. Okay, well, I have thought of a couple things we can do, and it shows who it will affect. Some of them affect more than one person. We will go over who gets what and will strike soon. After Naruto and Tsunami had bought Kiyomi some clothes, they had packed their things and were getting ready to get back on the road and go look for more of the girls Kiyomi had been telling Naruto about. Naruto had given Tazuna and Inari a special kunai that he told them to throw on the ground if they needed him. Tsunami had talked to them as well about taking care of themselves, and she told her father not to be getting drunk every night, as she was no longer going to be around to watch him, and Inari wasn't going to either. They all said their goodbyes before stocking up on supplies, then took their leave of the village. Outside the village. So Naruto-kun, where are we heading first? Tsunami asked Naruto while walking next to him. He looks at her happily. Well, the closest place now would be Suna. I thought we could go and see my friend Gaara, considering he's the Kazekage. So we shouldn't run into any trouble there, he says calmly while walking, turning to look at her. Kiyomi was walking happily after being sealed inside for so many years, overjoyed to be out in the fresh air again. Naruto took notice of this and smiles. Someone's happy, don't you think so, Tsunami-chan? He asks playfully. She looks over at the former sealed demon and smiles as well. Well, Naruto-kun, after being sealed up for so long, I'm not at all surprised at how she's acting. Although it's hard to believe that the most powerful bijou of all in our world is walking right next to us, and that she is one of your mates as well. That reminds me, she says, pausing for a moment, embarrassed before continuing. When are you and me going to? She stops talking for a moment, and when Naruto turns to look at her, she was deep red. After realizing what she was trying to ask, Naruto looked away with a blush of his own. Well, Tsunami-chan, I thought we would wait, and at the soonest do it in Suna. I just didn't like the idea of doing that in your house where Tazuna and Inari could walk in on us. He told her honestly. After thinking about it and realizing that he was right, she simply nodded and continued walking, but instead moved next to him and grabbed onto his arm while walking. Okay, Naruto-kun, I'll hold you to that. I'm sure I can wait a little longer, she said, smiling as he did the same. Kiyomi looked behind her and stared at Naruto and Tsunami. What's taking you two so long? Let's hurry up. I want to get to Suna and relax in the hot springs, she says with her best pout while whining. Naruto smiles at her. Kiyomi-chan, Tsunami-chan isn't like you and me, she can't travel as far as fast as we can. Kiyomi stopped and thought on this. Why don't you just carry her, Naruto-kun? I'm sure she wouldn't mind, she told him, smiling. Tsunami blushed and Naruto grinned. That's a great idea, Kiyomi-chan. He then turned to Tsunami. Is there a specific way that you would like to be carried, Tsunami-chan? He asked her sincerely. She blushes and looks at him. Well, if it's not too much trouble, Naruto-kun, I was wondering if you could carry me bridal style, she tells him quietly but loud enough for him to hear. He smiles at her warmly. Sure, Tsunami-chan. He picked her up, and once she got comfortable, they rushed to Suna. In Suna, after Gaara and Temari had returned to their village from the meeting they were called to, they left with themselves and came back with two more girls that surprisingly enough they were both Jinchuriki, just like Naruto and Gaara. Their names were Fu and Yujito. Fu held the seven-tailed horn beetle, and Yujito had the two-tailed cat. They had left their villages and had nowhere else to live at the moment, and Gaara was kind enough to offer them protection in his village. They took him up on his offer immediately, and were happy to have somewhere to stay. Temari offered to show them where they would be sleeping and surprised the two when they found out they would be living in the Kazekage's house. They thought they would have been shown to an apartment, or something similar. Temari decided to break the silence that was in the room. So why do you two like Naruto-kun? She asked, getting straight to the point. The other two stopped what they were doing and looked at her. Fu sighed and decided to explain it to Temari because she and Yujito fell for Naruto for the same reason and the same time. Well, you see, Temari, we both fell for Naruto-kun for the same reason. When the Akatsuki were done extracting a bijou from a body, they didn't destroy it. They would simply dump the body outside and would let it rot. But Naruto-kun found our bodies in good condition, and after defeating the Akatsuki, he looked at notes the Akatsuki had written and figured out how to release some of the demons without destroying the statue they were in, and released them so they would go back to the demon realm. Well, for 5 of them at least. For me, Yujito, and Gaara, he released our demons so they would go back to our bodies only because our bodies were in the best condition, while the others were beyond recognition and decomposed for a while. So he decided to give the others proper burials before he revived me and Yujito. When we came to, we were confused and weak, so until we could take of ourselves, he did. After healing serious injuries and infections, he took us to a nice hotel, fed us, protected us, and gave us anything else we needed. She stopped for a moment to catch her breath and let Temari absorb everything that had been told so far. Temari nodded her head, telling Fu that she could continue, so he ended up taking care of us for a couple months, and when he told us how we were revived, both of us found it hard to believe that a younger, and what we thought to be a weaker ninja could have defeated enemies that were too much for the rest of us to even stand a chance. But when he told us why he had bothered to help us, he told us how he had been given the same cursed life as us and even had the strongest tailed demon in him. We were both shocked at this and thought this had been the only reason that he was so strong, but once he told us what his drive was and after he had told us of his life, we were both in tears by the end of it, and even though our lives were as typical for a Jinchuriki, they were nowhere as bad as his. Once he told us that we were good enough to take care of ourselves, he told us that the two of us should stay together. But before he left, he gave us a special kunai and told us that if we ever needed him again to just put chakra in it and throw it on the ground. She took a breath and continued. After he was gone, we both felt empty without seeing him every day and his smile cheering us up, but we knew of what the council in his village would do to us after he warned us, so we stayed away and continued our travels. After she was finished, she looked at Temari. Temari looked up and after seeing that she was finished spoke. Wow, well, to put my response short, I know now that neither of you have bad or hurtful intentions towards Naruto-kun, she said to them, looking them in the face. Yujito was the next one to speak. Thank you for understanding, Temari-san. She looked at her and smiled. So do we know where Naruto-kun is now? Yujito asked, curious. Temari looked up. The last I heard, he was on his way here and will be here by tomorrow, she replied, smirking. Yujito and Fu were quiet for a moment before yelling, what? They then began running around frantically yelling random questions like what does he look like now? And do we need to go shopping? And the one Temari thought was the most hilarious was when they both yelled, do we have enough ramen? Once she heard this, one Temari started laughing her head off. Konoha. After each passing day, everyone started getting worse in Konoha. With their supplies becoming less and less, people were starting to fight over things like food, supplies, and clothes. Stores were closing and riots went from being small to large almost every day. While the village was getting little to no missions, some people were planning on leaving the village before things got worse, while some already had left. Some of the smaller but still known clans were smiling knowing that this had all happened because of Naruto leaving, and thought it was funny to those who hadn't realized it, and even funnier to those who had. The ones who were annoyed the most was the council, because they were always arguing over what the solution was to stopping the chaos and restoring the village before they went from the one of the greatest ninja villages to the lowest, now being a laughing stock in their eyes. Only a select few knew what the solution was, and some were already working on solving the problem. Sasuke, Sakura, Kiba, Hinata, Shikamaru, Ino, Niji, Tenten, Chuji, Kurenai, Asuma, Shizen, Yamoto, Enko, Irika, Hana, and Kakashi were all called to the Hokage's office. When they got there, they were greeted by Tsunade and Jiraiya finally. Well, now that you're all here, I'm sure you are aware as to why our village is in chaos and what we will need to do to fix it. Everyone except Sasuke and Sakura looked down ashamed, and Hinata was the one to speak up for them. Yes, Tsunade-sama. The reason we have been put into this position was because of those of us who hurt and betrayed Naruto. Sasuke scoffed, as did Sakura, as she spoke up. What are you talking about, Hinata? It's not our fault the demon left the village because he was too childish to grow up and get over his depression. That he didn't want to face the fact that he would never have a wife because no girl would want to give birth to a demon spawn, she said coldly. Everyone looked at her shocked. Tsunade was the first to speak. I want everyone except Sakura to leave my office for a moment. When no one moved, Tsunade grew furious. She stood up, slamming her fist into her desk, leaving a crack in it. I said, get the fuck out. Everyone rushed out of the room after that. Tsunade sat back down and hid her anger from Sakura. Now, Sakura, would you please explain to me as to what has changed your opinion of Naruto so suddenly? Sakura didn't think anything of the question, so she answered truthfully. After the demon left, my parents and some other civilians threw me and Sasuke-kun a congratulations party for finally ridding our village of him, and my parents told me why they, along with other civilians, always hated him, she told her. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as her response. And why is that, Sakura? Tsunade asked, waiting to see if she was going to have to kill some civilians soon. Because he is the nine-tailed fox Kyuubi, and that's why he was always so strong, she told her, and was surprised when she was suddenly grabbed by Umbu and held in place on the floor. Tsunade then called for some more Umbu, who quickly appeared and knelt in front of her. What are your orders, Hokage-sama? One of them asked. Tsunade looks at the one who questioned her and replied calmly, bring me Sakura Haruno's parents. And if you find anyone that went to a recent party held at their house, I want you to find and kill them, she said in a deadly calm tone. When they received their orders, the Umbu disappeared and were back within a couple minutes with Sakura's parents. Some of the others are still out finding the rest of the party guests, Hokage-sama, he told her then bowed and left with the other Umbu after being dismissed. Jiraiya came in surprisingly through the door this time, and when he closed it, Tsunade had Jiraiya put up privacy seals while she never took her eyes off Sakura's parents. So I heard that you two revealed something regarding Naruto Uzumaki to your daughter? Is this true? She asked calmly. They looked at each other, then back to Tsunade, and Sakura's dad spoke up. Of course we did. She asked us why we had always hated the demon, and we told her the truth, that he was the nine-tailed fox, he said, speaking calmly and not realizing what he just did. Sakura was watching the whole ordeal when she was noticed Tsunade's hands tightening into fists. Tsunade then looked at them. You have both broken the third's law and shall pay the price set for it. And the next thing Sakura saw was two kunais into the air before piercing her parents' skulls and shattering them into pieces, killing them instantly. Sakura had been covered in the blood from her parents' remains and was shocked into silence for a couple seconds before screaming at the top of her lungs, no. Back with Naruto. Naruto stopped for a moment and started smiling. When Kiyomi noticed this, she looked at him confused. What are you so happy about, Naruto-kun? He looked at her. I don't really know, but I feel like someone just got something that was way overdue and that their suffering is far from over, he told her, still smiling. She looked at him silently. Wow, Naruto-kun, that sounded so evil. I love it, she said, smiling as he laughed at her response. I wonder if it was someone in that cursed village, he said with venom in his voice. We can only hope, Naruto-kun, she tells him with an evil smirk. They were making great time and could already see Suna in the distance. Hey Kiyomi-chan, I can see Suna. Want to race and see who will get there first? He asked playfully and stretching. She laughed. Sure, Naruto-kun, even though it's obvious who will win. she told him, grinning. Naruto looked at Tsunami still in his arms. Are you okay, Tsunami-chan? She nodded. Yes, Naruto-kun, just get it over with. I want to get there already so you can mark me as well, she said in trying to be sexy, but it came out in a cute whining voice instead. Naruto laughed and was about to summon a toad when Kiyomi stopped him. Wait, Naruto-kun, the frogs could tell the pervert where you are. I think you should cancel the contract, or tell them what happened, and see if they will cancel Jiraiya's. She told him in a serious tone. For now I'll summon a fox and tell the Kazekage that we'll be there in about an hour. Naruto nodded and picked Tsunami back up. Kiyomi did some hand seals quickly when a small light red four-tailed fox appeared in a puff of smoke. Kyubi-sama. You're alive! The little fox started jumping around happily, until Kiyomi grabbed it and made her calm down. Yes, I am. I'll explain later, but right now I need you to go that village over there, find the leader and tell him that Naruto Uzumaki and friends will be arriving shortly, okay? She told her in a tone that calmed her down. She bowed and rushed to the village in speeds that would make Guy jealous. Naruto looked amazed at the little fox's speed before snapping out of his trance when he noticed that Kiyomi had gotten a head start. Hey! No fair! He yelled before rushing after her. After he caught up with her, they were evenly matched and were both laughing happily while running. With what seemed like infinite stamina, they made it to the village in 20 minutes, and Naruto would have won had he not been jumped by two yellow and a green blur. All he heard before he had been jumped was 3 happy cries of Naruto-kun. Luckily, before he had hit the ground, he had made a shadow clone and threw Tsunami at it to keep her out of harm. When he was jumped, he was instantly smothered by what seemed like 6 extremely soft pillows. Hello, Temari-chan, Yujito-chan, Fu-chan, he said while smiling, knowing exactly who had jumped him. He was however surprised when instead of getting a hello from them, he received 3 extremely enjoyable, long kisses from each girl. When they were all finished, he sat there with the biggest grin on his face. That was awesome, he said while looking at each of the girls. So ladies, as much as I love this welcome party, I think we should make our way to the Kazekage's office, because I need to have a chat with him, he said, getting up and still smiling. He got 5 replies that each said hi, Naruto-kun. Naruto was heading towards the Kazekage's building with Kiyomi, Tsunami, Temari, Yujito, and Fu behind him. So when did you and Yujito get here, Fu? Naruto asked the 2 girls while walking. Said girls did not answer his question as they were too busy sizing him up compared to the last time they saw him. He stopped and turned around to ask them again, but with them in their own worlds they didn't notice him stop. So they walked right into him, knocking him down with them on him. He looked at the 2 of them with a grin. What could the 2 of you be thinking about that has you so out of it? The 2 girls blushed and looked at each other, then replied, it's nothing, Naruto-kun. They both replied, and then Fu continued, we were just thinking about different things and thinking about things from the past, Naruto-kun, she said quietly but loud enough for him to hear. He didn't think anything of it, so he just nodded his head. Okay girls, but for now can you keep your heads out of the clouds? He asked them kindly. The girls blushed at seeing his smile. Okay, Naruto-kun, they both replied and walked next to him, and both girls grabbed a different arm and lead him to the Kazekage's office. Temari, Kiyomi, and Tsunami watched the 2 female Jinchuriki, pissed that it seemed like they were trying to keep Naruto to themselves, and kept following them, planning on ways to stop them from hogging him. What do those 2 think they're doing, hogging Naruto-kun like that? When we get privacy, I'm going to talk to them about how to share. Kiyomi thought to herself, smirking. What are those 2 doing? I thought we had agreed no hogging. Temari thought to herself, pissed. Tsunami, on the other hand, was trying to remain calm. It's okay, Naruto-kun already said that he was letting me have first dibs once we got here, and he never breaks his promises. When they finally arrived, Naruto smiled when he saw his old friend. Hey Gaara, how've you been? He asked happily. The red-haired Kazekage looked up at his friend. Hello Naruto, so you've finally arrived. So how long will you and are you and your company staying here in the sand? Gaara asked him, looking at the 2 girls that were with Naruto. By the way, in case they haven't told you, Yujito and Fu wish to accompany you once you leave, he told Naruto, getting straight to the point, while said girls started blushing. Naruto looked at them and smiled. Okay Gaara, by the way, is there somewhere we can rest? We're really tired and have some things that need to be done and things that need to be discussed before we leave, Naruto told him, smiling. 4 of the girls, however, took this as a sign that they could do what they wanted to their Naruto-kun now. Tsunami was the first to latch on to him. Oh Naruto-kun, don't forget what you promised me, she told him while smiling at him. Naruto simply blushed and nodded high. Yujito and Fu were next to move. What on earth could you have promised that would make you blush, Naruto-kun? They both said seductively. Naruto was chuckling sheepishly while being surrounded when Gaara suddenly popped up next to Naruto with some keys in hand. He spoke up once Naruto noticed him. Here are the keys to a hotel that I reserved for you and your guests, Naruto. He held them out when Naruto quickly grabbed them, and the next thing anyone saw was a cloud of dust. Everyone except Gaara and Temari were the only ones left in the room. I don't know whether to feel sorry for him or jealous. Gaara said to his sister, by the way, Temari, were you going to go with them? I've known for a while now that you have feelings for Naruto. He told her as Temari stood there thinking about what to do before taking off after the others. Naruto was currently being carried by Kiyomi and Fu while Yujito was leading them to the hotel while carrying Tsunami. Naruto gave a sigh. Girls, is this really necessary? I can walk on my own after all. He told them, saying it loud enough for them to hear. Kiyomi was the one to answer him. Of course this is necessary, Naruto-kun. We need to get to the hotel as soon as possible, and we don't need you getting distracted and running off somewhere. She told him, not looking up or stopping while talking to him. Fu looked at Kiyomi. So is there going to be a specific order, or are we going to discuss it when we get there? She asked her while they ran. Tsunami heard this and looked behind her at the two. Naruto-kun already promised me that as soon as we got into a hotel that I would be the next person to be mated to him, she told them. Yujito spoke up next, and Fu and I already decided that she would go first, then me. Kiyomi looked at the other girls. Well, considering I've already went, I'll let everyone else go, and then I'll go last. When they had all decided the order, they all had a smile that made him scared but eager at the same time when thinking about what they were smiling about. After being carried for what seemed like forever for Naruto, he finally heard Yujito yell, "We're here." He looked up and saw where they would be staying, and the only thing he could think of to say was, well, the hotel they were staying at in Naruto's opinion looked like somewhere only people of high status or royalty would be able to afford to stay at. It was at least 30 stories high. It looked like the walls were made of strong, durable materials, and the windows looked like it would be able to withstand many weapons. The inside was even more amazing than the outside. It looked like it would have cost millions to be able to buy everything that was inside. Not going into detail because I wouldn't know how else to explain a hotel in this kind of area without making it too advanced. The girls had finally set Naruto down, but this time grabbed his arms and dragged him to their room. They were amazed at how their room looked. Wow, Gaara really is spoiling us, Naruto said to no one in particular. Then next things he heard was whispering, footsteps, and finally the door closing. When he turned around, Tsunami was facing the door. Now it's time you fulfilled your promise, Naruto-kun, she said as she turned around and walked over to him seductively. Naruto had more energy to burn, so he went to the front desk and asked for 2 more rooms and made sure they surrounded Tsunami's room. Afterwards he headed to the room on the right of Tsunami's when his eyes were covered by what felt like a pair of soft hands. Naruto-kun, does this mean you're finished with Tsunami-chan? He heard a voice behind him ask. Then he felt the key for the room to the left of Tsunami's get taken and heard Kiyomi's voice, I'll meet you in the room later, Naruto-kun. Then from what he could hear, she entered the room to the left and closed the door. Naruto once again showered, and once he got dressed he started heading to the room that Kiyomi was in when he was stopped, and when he turned around to see who it was he was surprised to see no other than Temari. And Naruto-kun, I need to talk to you. He only nodded. Okay Temari-chan, what is it you need? She grabbed his arm and proceeded to lead him into another room she had rented out. Temari-chan, what's this about? Did something? He didn't get to finish his statement once Temari started to kiss him. After he made sure she was cleaned up, covered her up, took a shower again, and walked out to go to Kiyomi's room. This was one of the best days of my life, he said with a huge grin on his face. Back in Konoha, Sakura was being held in a cell in a high-security Umbu prison. She was going over everything in her life to try and find where she went wrong and what she did to deserve all that had happened to her. The only thing that was going through her mind, however, was the murder of her parents and what had transpired afterwards. Flashback. Sakura fell down to her knees after seeing her parents executed right in front of her, and the way they were killed. She looked up at the Hokage, tears in her eyes. Why did you murder my parents? Tsunade looked at her with no signs of remorse or any other emotion in her glare. They broke a law by telling you an S-class secret, and when they told you the secret that Naruto had the QB sealed in him at birth, they signed their own death warrants. She told her, then stood up. As she got up, she took notice of the Ki coming from the pink-haired banshee. I'll kill you. As she got up with a kunai in each of her hands but was tackled by Umbu before she even got close to Tsunade and held down. Tsunade looked at her. You really must be as unstable as the Uchiha. She looked at the Umbu. I want you to seal all her chakra, make sure it's permanent as well. The Umbu nodded their heads as they got up with Sakura wearing chakra-suppressing handcuffs until they permanently sealed her chakra. End Sakura's flashback and enter regular flashback. After the Umbu were gone, she called more to come and clean up the Haruno's bodies. Once she had calmed down enough to not hit the next person that pissed her off, she called the others back in, and when they noticed when Sakura was gone, they all were trying to figure out what happened, especially when they saw the Umbu cleaning up the bodies. This time Ino was the one to ask the question. Ayano, Tsunade-sama, where's Sakura? And whose bodies are the Umbu cleaning up? She asked, worried for her friend. Tsunade sat down and looked at the group of people. Sakura's parents were killed for breaking an S-class law, and Sakura has been arrested for attempting to kill me for executing her parents. She told them without any trouble getting the words out. Everyone except Sasuke gasped and became wide-eyed. Kiba spoke next. She did what? Tsunade looked at him. You heard me, Kiba. She has been arrested. She will have her chakra sealed and is being taken to a high-security Umbu prison. Everyone grew quiet after hearing this, and Tsunade sighed. The only way to get things back to normal and to end the chaos that has taken over this village is to get Naruto back. Therefore, I'm making an S-class mission for a team to go and retrieve him. Any volunteers? After the group did nothing for a couple seconds, Hinata, Ino, Shizen, Irika, Kakashi, and Yamato all raised their hands volunteering for the mission. Tsunade looked at the others. Anyone else? No one else did anything. Very well, I expect you 6 to be ready to leave in 2 days. The 6 all nodded and left to get ready. Tsunade looked at the others. If any of you change your mind and wish to go, tell me, but for now you're dismissed, you may leave. They all nodded and left. Tsunade sighed and let her head rest on her desk as tears started to fall. End of flashback. In between Land of Waves and Suna in the desert. The group that had volunteered to search for Naruto plus Lee and Shino, they volunteered once they heard about the mission, was heading to Suna after receiving info that he had been heading there after he had been in the Land of Waves for a couple days. Kakashi spoke up, we have to hurry. If we're lucky, Naruto is still in Suna and we may be able to catch up to him. After a chorus of hi was heard, they all picked up their speed with the intent to reach Suna in a couple hours. Naruto was slowly waking up from the best nap he had ever had in his life, but was confused from feeling pressure on certain parts of his body. Once he opened his eyes to see what it was, he was a little surprised to see all his girls lying on him. Fu and Temari were on his arms while Tsunami and Yujito were on his legs, and lastly Kiyomi's head was resting on his groin. He sighed and thought of what to do. When he had an idea, he quickly made a shadow and switched places with it. He then went to go make breakfast for the girls. Meanwhile, Gaara was sitting in his office finishing up his paperwork when he heard a knock on his door. Enter, he said calmly. When the door opened, he saw that it was one of his border watchers, Lord Kazekage. We have spotted Konoha ninja in the desert, and it looks like they're heading for us, sir, he said quickly and clearly. Gaara thought it over and asked, were you able to identify who they are or what they look like? The ninja looked down to read the names that had been written. Yes, sir, we have identified the 8 Konoha ninja to be Hinata Hyuga, Ino Yamanaka, Tsunade's assistant Shizen, Irika Yumino, Kakashi Hataki, Shino Aburame, Rock Lee, and lastly former Umbu Yamato. Gaara thought of what to do next. Send someone to retrieve Naruto Uzumaki and his guests. Also, go and tell all the guards at each gate there not to let the Konoha ninja into the village until further notice. The guard bowed. Yes, sir. He then shoo-shined out to fulfill his orders. Gaara relaxed and got up to open his window and look out of his window. Back with Naruto. Naruto had 2 other clones carrying food trays with him, and once they got to the room, he dispersed his clone, and the girls hit the bed softly and started to wake up. Naruto smiled. Good morning. I made breakfast for everyone, so time to get up and eat. 5 clones came in with tall mini tables, 1 for each girl. Naruto was taking second glances to some of the girls and noticed that some of their appearances had changed. Tsunami looked younger and a little shorter, her skin was softer and a certain glow about it. Her also lost all of the sagging they used to have. Tsunami was, however, the one with the most change. The others had little change. The only thing they all had in common was the effects on their skin, their height, and their. All of them got up and started eating except Yujito and Kiyomi, who simply covered their heads and refused to get up. Naruto got a playful smirk on his face and made a clone. They both slowly crept over to the 2 sleeping girls and pinched their butts playfully and got the result he wanted, which was making them both jump up and then roll off the bed. That wasn't very nice, Naruto-kun, Kiyomi said, getting up. Yujito just got up after stretching, which when she does resembles a cat, probably cause of Nibi, and starting eating. Naruto sat there smiling and relaxed. He then took a closer look at Tsunami's transformation. Tsunami-chan, have you looked in a mirror this morning? She looked puzzled at this and finished eating before she got up to go to the bathroom to look in the mirror. The others were eating while Naruto and Kiyomi were counting down in their heads, and when they both reached 0, they heard Tsunami scream with what sounded like joy before she ran back into the room and glomped Naruto. Naruto-kun, I haven't looked this way in years, she said while hugging him and squeezing his face into her. Whether she meant to do it or not was unknown. When she finally stopped, Naruto took a moment to catch his breath. But I always thought you looked beautiful, Tsunami-chan. Now you look even more beautiful, he told her honestly. She blushed at this and hugged him. Thank you, Naruto-kun. He then smiled and hugged her back. You're welcome, Tsunami-chan, he told her, smiling. Once everyone was done eating, the girls took turns in the shower and were getting ready for the day. After everyone was done showering and getting dressed, the group started going over what to do for the day when a knock was heard at the door. Naruto got up to answer the door and saw that it was a Suna ninja. Naruto-san, the Kazekage requires you and your group in his office immediately. Naruto nodded and the Suna ninja then shoo-shined away with his task done. Naruto then walked back into the room to tell all the girls, Gaara needs us now. They all groaned, thinking their fun day was ruined. Come on girls, it's not all that bad. He then smirked when he had an idea. He walked over to the door and opened it. Okay girls, here's something a little fun for you. He then walked over to Tsunami for a second, then walked back out for a second and made a shadow clone. While he took off to the Kazakage's building carrying Tsunami, the shadow clone went back inside. Now then, the first one to get to the tower will get a special reward from yours truly, while the rest will not. He walked out of the doorway and smiled. See ya there. The clone then poofed away. The girls all stood there for a second before they all took one look at each other before they all rushed out one by one, starting the race. Kiyomi, feeling generous, gave all the others a head start while she closed the door. At the Kazakage's building, Gaara was doing his paperwork waiting for Naruto and the girls when Naruto walked in, setting Tsunami down on a chair. Hey Gaara. Gaara looked confused for a moment. Naruto, where are the others that were with you? Naruto looked away, smiling. Right about now they're probably all racing here. Gaara sighed and looked out the window to see what looked like 4 mini dust clouds all heading towards his building. Naruto counted down from 5 to himself, and when he finished the door was forced open and Kiyomi jumped in gracefully with a smirk on her face while the others tried jumping in after her only to fall on each other, with Fu being on the bottom with Temari on top of her, and lastly Yujito fell and landing on top of the other two. Well girls, looks like Kiyomi won. He grinned and kissed her. When he was done she was smiling. You'll get the rest later, he whispered in her ear. She smiled and stood quietly. Gaara sighed. And you might want to sit down for this, Naruto. I don't think you're going to like the news I've received. Naruto's smile dropped, and he sat down, now serious. The girls grabbed seats and followed Naruto's example. Gaara took a moment to let them get comfortable before he gave them the news. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Suna, the group of Konoha ninja heading to Suna were now minutes away from the sand village when they all heard what? They all stopped and froze completely from the killing intent and rage that was coming from the direction of their destination. They all instantly knew who it, only reason being that they had all experienced it before firsthand. Kakashi looked at everyone before speaking. Looks like we haven't missed him. He paused for a moment. Everyone move out. We have to get there before they leave. They all then rushed to the village. Back in Gaara's office, the girls had all rushed to Naruto in a second to do their best to calm him down, even though honestly they were all just as pissed as him except for Tsunami, who was trying to keep her cool as she held Naruto, surprised as she had never seen him like this. He could do a lot of unneeded damage. Can you repeat that, Gaara? He asked, his sounding very pissed and demonic. Gaara sighed. I said that my border patrol has spotted 6 Konoha shinobi on their way here to the village. The 8 consist of Hinata Hyuga, Ino Yamanaka, Tsunade's assistant Shizun, Irika Yumino, Kakashi Hatake, Shino Abirame, Rock Lee, and Umbu Yamato. Naruto growled and tried to calm down. Gaara looked at him. What do you plan to do now, Naruto? Are you going to leave before they arrive or face them? He asked his friend. Naruto got up and looked at his girls. What do you all want to do? The 4 girls who could fight all huddled up and discussed on what they wanted to do, and when they finally came to a decision they broke up and Kiyomi stepped forward. Naruto-kun, we have all decided that we want to go and see what the pathetic Konoha ninja want, and if need be kick all their asses, she replied with a grin on her face. Naruto smiled at his girls, then turned around to look at Gaara. You heard them, Gaara. But don't worry, we'll make sure that the village doesn't receive any damage. He smiled at his friend, then turned around and left. Once Naruto and the girls were gone, Gaara laughed silently to himself. I hope those Konoha shinobi know what they're getting themselves into. With the Konoha shinobi, Kakashi and the others were stuck at the gates of the village because the guard would not let them in. Please just let in. We are only looking for someone, and we believe that they are in your village. Kakashi tried reasoning. The Suna nin sighed, getting tired of the copy nin's perseverance for the last time. No. I have orders not to let any Konoha ninja in for any reason. Kakashi sighed and looked to the others. I think the only thing we can do now is wait, and if we're lucky we'll see Naruto before he leaves the village. Small time skip. The Konoha shinobi waited for at least 2 hours, not noticing the 5 girls move around them, setting up different surprises and traps. When they were finally done, they all hid in nearby spots while Naruto played his part and walked out of the sand village calmly and casually. When he was finally within view of the Konoha shinobi, he acted like he didn't notice them while he walked in their direction. All of them just stared at him, seeing what he was going to do. Naruto just continued walking till he walked right past them and noticed out of the corners of his eyes that the guys all looked mad at being ignored while the girls looked sad, the first one to take action being Kakashi, who yelled out Naruto. When he yelled, a number of things happened. The others in his group came out of their stupors and got up to wait for Naruto's reaction, while Naruto himself stopped in his tracks. What do you want, Hatake? Naruto asked coldly, making Kakashi and the others minus Lee and Shino flinch at the malice in his voice. Kakashi relaxed himself before replying, we were sent to take you back to the village, Naruto. Please don't make us use force, Kakashi said. Honestly, if we have to we will. While you are strong, you are outnumbered 8-1. When he finished speaking, Naruto started chuckling before he started laughing. While we are outnumbered, Hatake, your numbers are wrong. We are not outnumbered, as it is an even 6-6. When Naruto finished his sentence, all of the Konoha shinobi looked confused. What do you mean, Naruto? Was all Hinata got to say before a kunai flew and cut her cheek enough to start blood seeping out. She cried out in pain, and when the others heard her they looked to see that she had been assaulted, and so Ino and Shizen rushed to help her when they had all turned away from Naruto to look at Hinata when an unknown voice was heard. Never, I repeat, never call him that again, you slut. All of them except Ino and Shizen turned to see another person next to Naruto. Naruto merely chuckled. Kiyomi-chan, calm down. While I know that your reason for cutting her was good, we wouldn't want any wasted weapons now, would we? He asked her in a playful tone. Hinata was hurt that Naruto didn't care that she had been hurt, and that he considered a weapon a waste on her as well. The others were surprised and pissed at what they heard, but also confused as to who the woman was. Naruto, what the hell is your problem, and why are you being so cold to us? Ino yelled at the other blonde, who the hell is this girl, and why did she hurt Hinata-chan for no reason? Ino then demanded before cowering under the ki from Naruto and the redhead. Before he coldly replied, first off, Ino, you don't get to demand anything from me. Secondly, she had a good reason for attacking the Hyuga. That reason being that she tried to call me something she lost the right to do so a long time ago. Hinata was now on the verge of tears, and the others were surprised but angry at the things Naruto was saying. What happened to you, Naruto? Shizen asked quietly to herself while patching up Hinata's cut, but was loud enough to be heard by the blonde and his girls, which in turn caused a lot of ki to be released, which exposed where the other girls were as well, putting the leaf shinobi on guard. Whoever you are, show yourselves, Kakashi yelled. There were 3 gusts of wind followed by flashes of movement one after the other, and when the leaf shinobi opened their eyes they were surprised to now see 4 girls guarding Naruto, while another girl was hiding behind Naruto holding his hand and talking to him. Fu, Yujito, and Kiyomi all let their demonic features show and released a stronger killing intent. How dare you ask that question when you should already know the answer, you fucking slut. Kiyomi was now beyond pissed and ready to murder. The same being said for Fu and Yujito. What do you mean? We didn't do anything to Naruto-kun, Shizen said, being as stupid and ignorant as Jiraiya and Tsunade, and once she was done with her sentence she was sent flying by a powerful kick courtesy of Fu. Fu was looking down, and the Leaf Nin were surprised at her speed and how easily she got past the rest of them. I guess it wasn't obvious that when we said that the Hyuga bitch couldn't call Naruto-kun by that suffix anymore. That went to all of you except Lee-san and Shino-san, of course, she added with a normal voice. Kakashi kept his gaze on the entire group. Why showing favoritism to only 2 of us? He asked, really confused. After this Ino looked around. Speaking of which, where are Lee and Shino? All of them except Yamato, who was checking on Shizen, looked around to see if they could locate the 2 ninja when Yujito stepped forward to answer both of your questions. The only reason we treat Shino and Lee kindly is because they're the only ones who have never betrayed Naruto-kun and have never damaged physically or emotionally. And to answer your last question, when she stopped talking she moved, and the others were shocked to see the people they're looking for standing with Naruto's group. They asked to join our group, Kiyomi said with a grin. Naruto, Kiyomi, Temari, Fu, and Yujito stood in a line with Tsunami, Lee, and Shino behind them. Naruto spoke without turning around. Tsunami, go back to the village with Lee and Shino for now and wait there. He then summons a small dog-sized 4-tailed fox. You take them to the village, and make sure they get there safe, he told him without looking away from the Leaf Nin. The fox bowed. As you wish, Naruto-sama. Little fox then sped off to the village with Lee and Shino right behind him, with Tsunami being carried by Lee. Naruto then turned back to the others and looked at who they were going to have to deal with. After much thought he came up with his plan. Fu, Yujito, you 2 take care of the Hyuga and Yamanaka. Temari, you can take on Yumino, and me and Kiyomi will take care of Hataki and Yamato. When he finished with his instructions they all nodded and rushed to their opponents. Fu and Yujito versus Hinata and Ino. Yujito and Fu glared at Ino and Hinata with a glare that made them feel uneasy. Even if they didn't show it, you 2 are gonna pay for what you did to Naruto-kun, Fu said while Yujito snarled at the 2 kunoichi while flexing her claws. You bitches and that horrible village don't deserve to have someone like him. After all the crap you put him through. I'm surprised he didn't finish what Kiyomi started, Yujito said while Ino and Hinata cringed at the tone they were being spoken with. We're taking Naruto back to Konoha. He belongs there with us, not with all of you who probably just want him for something selfish like his name or power, Ino growled out. You took him away from us. You took away our Naruto-kun, she yelled, only to freeze up when she felt Yujito's demonic chakra flare, and the image of a 2-tailed demon cat appeared behind Yujito. How dare you call him Naruto-kun? You don't deserve to call him that, you 2-timing bitch! Fu yelled out, letting her chakra flare while Yujito started doing the same. You, along with all those other sluts and so-called friends he had in Konoha, are the reason he left and broke his heart. And now we're gonna break you for causing him so much pain! Yujito roared out, and with blinding speed appeared in front of a frightened Hinata and punched her right in the gut. The sound of ribs cracking caused Hinata's eyes to widen in pain and cough up a glob of blood. Yujito then kicked her in the left side of her head and sent her skidding across the desert, with Yujito going after her. Ino paled when she saw what Yujito did to Hinata and monsters. You people are monsters! She yelled out, and Fu just scoffed at her. To you and Konoha perhaps we are monsters, but to Naruto-kun we're angels. And unlike all of you in that village we love him for who he is. You're not taking him back and I'm gonna make sure you and Konoha pay for what you did to our Naruto-kun, she said as a forest green demonic energy flared from her body. Ino then charged at Fu with her fist cocked back and punches Fu directly in the face, but is surprised as Fu just stands there not even fazed. Smiling at how shocked Ino was, the Yamanaka then cocked her other fist back and before she could anything Fu sunk her fist into Ino's stomach. Her eyes bulged from how strong the punch was and she coughed up saliva. Ino takes a few steps back clutching her gut as she falls to her knees. Oh Kami, what the hell? Her fist felt like a sledgehammer. She thinks to herself, and then vomits on the sand. Fu having a smirk on her face as she walks over to the coughing Ino, grabbing the girl by her blonde hair, lifting her by the roots, making her girl yell out in pain. Fu's smirk became a scowl when she suddenly headbutts the girl and drops her onto the ground watching her fall with a thud. Fu then appears beside her as Ino clutched her broken nose in pain. Fu then stomps on Ino's chest making her scream out in pain this time. Oh, I'm sorry, did that hurt? Because that's nothing compared to how you broke Naruto-kun's broken heart, she says and stomps on her chest even harder making Ino's cries become louder. Temari vs. Irika. Temari's eyes were ice cold as she glares Irika down. You bastards have got a lot of nerve coming here and trying to take Naruto-kun away from us. All of you are the reason why he left, and you still want him to go back? And it's really sad, Irika, you're the one person who he thought of as a brother, and you betrayed him by fucking the snake slut, she said making Irika glared at her. Don't you dare call Anko-chan that, he tells her in a dangerous tone making Temari smirk. Call her what? A slut? A bitch? A whore? A tramp? Oh, I know what to call her. She's a cum-chugging cocksucker. Now I know why everyone calls her the snake whore. She probably uses her summons to relieve herself and will eventually get tired of you and dump you just like she did Naruto, she finishes in a sickly sweet voice. Irika saw red as he starts to perform hand seals. I'll kill you. Katon, Karawendon. He then fires a red dragon at Temari, who smirked and pulled out a large silver fan. When it opens, Irika notices the fan was designed red with a blue moon on it. Sorry, but I don't feel like dying yet. Futon, dai kamaitashi. She cried out and created a powerful gust of wind that directed the fire dragon to a different side, shocking the man. You see this fan here? Naruto-kun made this for me because I was precious to him. It's called Kaze Megami. Not only does it augment elemental chakra like my wind-based chakra, but it doubles the power of my wind jutsu, meaning your little fire balls won't even get close to me, she says while the man looks at her in shock. Now I'm gonna cut you to ribbons with it. Futon, Kuro Ryu Tatsumaki. She cries out and then she swings her fan around in a form of dancing while the wind around her turns black. During the process it turns into a roaring dragon while coiling around Temari's form. Temari then stopped and an evil grin appeared on her face. She then swung her fan in his direction and the black dragon headed towards Irika. It then opened its mouth and engulfs him into its wind-based body and it started to rip the man to shreds. Irika cried out in pain as he was slashed by invisible blades on every part of his body. Naruto and Kiyomi vs. Kakashi and Yamato. If looks could kill, then Kakashi would be dead by now. The man cringed at the glare Naruto was giving him. It reminded him of Minato when he was pissed, only worse. Now Naruto, I know you're upset with Hokage-sama and the village, but don't you think you're taking this too far? He asks, and Naruto just remains silent with his arms crossed and his father's cape fluttering in the wind. Aren't you gonna say anything, Naruto? He asks. Sorry, but I don't associate myself with those who are lower than trash, he replies in a cold tone making the son of the White Fawn flinch. Now that was harsh, Naruto. I know you're mad at me for not training you like I did Sasuke, but do not mention that traitor's name in my presence. I should have killed that arrogant fool a long time ago, Naruto says as he cracked his knuckles making Kakashi's eyes widen. Naruto-kun, would you like to switch? Kiyomi asks and the blonde shakes his head. No. You deal with that knockoff of the Shodame. Hataki is mine, Naruto says, and the vixen grins evilly at the nervous wood user. Okay. For a demon like me this'll be easy, she says and then vanishes, scaring Yamato, who started looking around for her. Kiyomi was standing behind him and suddenly wrapped a tail around his entire body. Kyubi? He says with a look of horror and fear on his face, and she chuckled at him. Took you long enough, you stupid monkey, she said, and then with a flick of her tail she sent him flying into the dunes, and she flexed her clawed hands. Naruto chuckled as he saw what Kiyomi did, and Kakashi looked at him in fear. And Naruto, why you freed the Kyubi? Why? What the hell are you thinking, freeing the demon that killed my sensei? He yelled out, only to regret it when said Blonde's ki increased. Shut up, Hataki, don't you dare refer to my mate in such a manner, She has been there for me more than you, that pervert, or that old hag. And how dare you refer to my father as your sensei? As far as I'm concerned, you and the village are trash. I've been waiting to beat your weak and pathetic ass for a long time. You are nothing but a failure. Like father, like son, he says, and Kakashi's eyes widen at the jab and narrows his eyes at the blonde while clenching his fists. You're gonna regret saying that to me, you brat, he says in a low and dangerous tone. Please, you could barely beat Zabuza back then without that eye in your skull, nor could you face Itachi. Do you want to know why? Because they were better than you, and once I'm done beating your sorry ass to the ground, I'm gonna rip that accursed eye out of your skull and crush it in my hand. And after that, I'm going back to Konoha and I'm gonna kill Sasuke, Naruto says. Kakashi's hand ignited with lightning covering his right hand. I will not allow you to do that. Raikiri, he yells out and charges at Naruto, who just stood there. Kakashi then thrusts his hand forward at Naruto's chest. The blonde then grabbed his lightning-covered fist, making the man's eyes widen. How? He asks, and the blonde smirks. Being a wind user does have its advantage. If you forgot, wind nullifies lightning, you idiot. Naruto then kneed Kakashi in the ribs, making the man hunch over. He then backhanded the man in the temple and sent him to the ground hard. Oh, don't keel over yet, team. I haven't broken every bone in your body yet, Naruto yelled as his eyes became crimson, and he charged at the man. Kiyomi scowled as her body was wrapped in wood, and Yamato was panting as he used his Mokutan abilities to ensnare her. You can't escape, Kyubi. My wood-based jutsu suppresses your yukai, and once we apprehend Naruto, we'll find a way to seal you back into the boy, he said as Kiyomi's scowl became a grin. Is that so? Stupid monkey, she asked, and then flexed her muscles, and the wrapped wood started to strain from her strength. Yamato's eyes widened in horror, and before he knew it, Kiyomi broke free of the jutsu and pieces of wood went flying into different directions. How? Was all he asked? Kiyomi dusts off her outfit and smirks at the man. You may have the Shodame's abilities to create wood, but yours isn't nearly strong enough to suppress demonic energy outside a Jinchuriki, she says, and before he knew it, a red blur knocked him upside his head, sending him to the ground hard, and he was rendered unconscious. Yujito was unleashing a barrage of punches and kicks on Hinata, who could barely avoid them even with her Byakugan activated. Most of her Juken moves were swatted aside or avoided by the blonde girl. She tried to strike her in the head, but Yujito pulled a left and right hook on the side of her jaw and then kicked Hinata in the chest and sent her flying backwards. Hinata struggled to get up, and when she did, she saw a large blue fireball head right towards her, turning the sand into glass and leaving a trail. She manages to dodge it, but the heat from it burned her clothes and singed her skin and hair. Yujito then wrapped her hand around Hinata's face and slammed her into the ground. She then dragged Hinata across the dirt, and then through the girl. Fu held a beaten, bloody, and bruised Ino by the throat, and when she saw the flying body of the female Hyuga head straight at her, she smirked and dropped Ino. Hinata crashed into her, and the two were sent tumbling across the sand, and both girls laid unconscious when they stopped. Yujito appeared beside Fu and wraps an arm around her shoulder. Too easy, Fu says. No kidding, Yujito replies, not even tired. They looked to see Temari knock a torn-up Irika in the head with Kaze Megami, and said Leaf Nin was knocked out. She then dragged the unconscious man by the collar and approached the two. So where do I dump this trash? She asks, and they pointed to Ino and Hinata's battered forms with grins on their faces. The Wind Mistress tossed Irika next to the Kunoichi and grinned with her fan resting on her shoulders. I feel better, don't you? She asked the other two. Fu and Yujito nodded back and watched as Naruto dealt with Kakashi. Kiyomi then appeared with the beaten form of Yamato, who was also knocked out. This stupid monkey actually thought that his knockoff version of the Shodame Hokage's Mokuton could suppress my power, she said, and tossed the man next to the others. She then chuckled evilly when she saw Naruto knocking Kakashi around like he was a genin. So the copycat is finally getting a taste of his own medicine? How ironic, she said as she saw Kakashi barely dodge a futon Rasengan, and the ground shakes from the impact of the jutsu. He's gonna maim the poor bastard, she said as she licked her lips. He is so hot when he's angry. The mere thought of him being hot and pissed turns me on, she says with an ear-splitting grin on her face. Fu, Yujito, and Temari blushed when she said that, and then a grin appeared on Yujito's face. He'll probably want to relieve himself with us once this is over. Angry sex is said to be the best, and with Naruto-kun's stamina, she stated as she shivered, as does Fu and Temari. Don't forget about his tool. We'll be lucky if he doesn't split us in half with it, Kiyomi said to them with a cheeky grin on her face, and laughed when Temari, Yujito, and Fu were sent flying backwards via large nosebleeds and hit the ground with a thud, leaving 3 unconscious and grinning girls with blood trailing down their noses. Kakashi was panting like crazy with cuts and bruises on his being. Naruto stood 5 feet away from his with a blank expression. How boring, I expected a better fight from you, sensei. To think that you used to be an ANBU and considered to be one of the strongest ninja in Konoha. Don't make me laugh. I mean, the least the old hag could have done was send Gai-san. At least he'd make me work up a sweat due to the fact that he could or can kick your ass using taijutsu only. He says, making Kakashi glare at Naruto. How? How did you get this strong? You were never this strong back in Konoha, he says, only for Naruto to laugh at the man. You really are an idiot, Hatake. I've always been this strong. I just held back to keep idiots like you from demanding things from me. I have more talent in my pinky than your Uchiha does in his entire body. Now then, Naruto pulled out a tri-pronged kunai, and a look of horror appeared on Kakashi's face. Naruto threw the kunai, and it landed near Kakashi's feet, and before Kakashi could blink, he saw a flash of red and then his body jerked back as Naruto plunged a Rasengan into his gut and sent the man flying backwards. Kakashi then hit the ground with a small crater surrounding him, and as he struggled to get up, and he could only watch as Naruto approached him. Kakashi struggled to stand on his feet, and before he could try anything, a shadow clone was behind him and it put Kakashi in a stranglehold. I already told you, Hatake. I am gonna rip that eye out of your head and crush it, he says as he approaches Kakashi with his right arm stretched out and his index, thumb, and middle finger extended. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror as he struggled to get out of the clone's grip, but it was too strong and no, Naruto, you can't. This eye is the only memory I have of Obito. You can't take this from me, he cried out as Naruto placed his fingers around the man's left eye socket. Do you think I give a damn? You and the village took everything from me, and now I'm gonna take what you cherish the most, your best friend's eye, he said in a demonic tone as he pulled the eyeball out slowly. Please, Naruto, I beg of you, don't do this, Kakashi begged, and Naruto had a smirk on his face. Sorry, but I'm done listening to you or anyone from that hellhole. Oh, and tell that prick Sasuke that he's next, he says, and with a yank of his arm, he pulls it backwards and ripped the Sharingan eye out of his head. Kakashi's screams of agony and pain could be heard across the desert as Naruto ripped out the eye that gave him 1,000 jutsu. The clone knocked out Kakashi, whose empty eye socket bled. Naruto stared at the bloody Sharingan eye that was in his hand. One down, one more to go, he says as the clone hoists Kakashi over his should and walks with Naruto to the girl's location. Fu, Yujito, Temari, and Kiyomi saw Naruto and his clone with an unconscious Kakashi walking towards them. Naruto sees them and grins as the clone walks past them and tosses the man into the ground and disperses. Hey Naruto-kun, Yujito, Fu, and Temari said at the same time. Kiyomi sees his bloody hand and blinks. Why is your hand bloody, Naruto-kun? She asks, and Naruto holds it out in front of them, and they all gasped. And Naruto, you, Fu asks, and as he nodded, yep, I ripped out that bastard's eye, he says, and then closed his hand, crushing the eye like a bug. I consider this as a form of payback. Now the fool no longer knows 1,000 jutsu, he said, smirking. The three grinned and Naruto looked at the unconscious forms of the leaf nin. All that's left is to return the trash where it came from, and then after I need to get rid of the rest of my pent-up anger. Wanna help me with that, Tenchis? He asks. Yes, the three says at the same time and blush while Kiyomi snickers. I'll help also, now to deal with the trash, she says as she leers at the KO nin. Hokage Tower. Tsunade was sipping on some sake, wondering if the team she sent out managed to get Naruto. That was when a two-tailed fox appeared with a scroll in its mouth, and then it drops the scroll and disappeared. When she then opened the scroll, she jumped back when she saw the beaten and bloody unconscious forms of Kakashi, Ino, Hinata, Iruka, Shizen, and Yamato on her desk. A note was next to them, and she opened it and read it. Hey old hag. This is my last fucking warning. Don't send any more of your ninja after me, or next time they'll come back in pieces. Enjoy the rest of your life, you old bat. From Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. P.S. Just so that you know, Kakashi no longer has his special eye courtesy to the blonde fox. Kakashi has a message for Sasuke, and Lee and Shino say they quit. Tsunade's eyes widened in horror as she saw Kakashi's empty eye socket and slumped back into her seat. The council and the others are not going to like this at all. She then sighed and called some of her emergency medics to her office and sat back down with one thought on her mind: I need more sake. Back with Naruto and others. Naruto and his group were on the road and heading for their next stop in Kirigakure to talk to the Mizukage and see if they could get more supplies while they were there. Only problem was that they had been walking for hours and all the girls besides Kiyomi had gotten too exhausted hours ago and were now being carried by Fox Summons, and Shino and Lee were in the back, while Naruto was at the front of the group still pissed. Kiyomi, however, was tired of waiting for her reward for winning the race back and soon. And Naruto-kun, when am I getting the surprise I was promised? Kiyomi asked, playfully pouting. He stopped, looked at how the sun was setting and sighed. Okay, we'll camp here for the night. He started to set up when he was stopped by Kiyomi. Wait, Naruto-kun, I have a better idea. She then went through hand signs unknown to the others before she stopped, and yelled summoning jutsu. When the smoke cleared, there were a total of 16 dog-sized six-tailed foxes that had what looked like building tools on their backs. You called us Kyubi-sama. The others except Kyubi were confused as to what she was doing. Yes, I would like all of you to build us a temporary one-leveled home with 3 bedrooms, with one being big enough for 2 males, and the other one being enough for 6 people, but also having another room connected to it big enough for 4. I would also like bathrooms to be connected to their respective rooms, she continued while the main fox took notes. I would also like a kitchen and lounging room. When she was finished, the group of foxes huddled together and went over the rooms and then ideas. But before they could run off, Kiyomi stopped them. Oh, and by the way, this goes for all of you, okay? Never call me Kyubi-sama again, call me Kiyomi-sama instead. They all bowed before they took off in different directions to get wood, as they already had their building tools. Time skip. In only a couple hours, the group of foxes were done building what Kiyomi had asked for. We have finished what you asked for, Kiyomi-sama, the leader of the group of foxes said while they were all bowing. Kiyomi looked the house over and smiled. Good work, that is all we need for now. Go ahead and head back. They all nodded before going away in a puff of smoke. When they left, Kiyomi walked into the house followed by the others. Well, we better get some sleep. Lee, you and Shino take the smaller room with the 2 beds, okay? Naruto said while looking at the 2 former Leaf Shinobi, who nodded before they went to their room. When Naruto and his girls went into their room, Naruto was surprised at how big their room was, and with the fact that they only had 1 bed, even though it was in his opinion the biggest bed he had ever seen in his life. As Naruto and his mates went to the bed, the blonde looked at them. So who gets to go first? He asked. I do. Fu, Yujito, Temari, and Tsunami all yelled out at the same time, but then glared at each other while Kiyomi and Naruto chuckled. Now girls, no fighting, there's plenty of meat to go around. Tsunami-chan went first, then Yujito-chan and Fu-chan, and then it was Temari, and then Kiyomi-chan was last. So now Yomi-chan gets to go first, and I still have to give her the reward she was supposed to get for beating all of you to the Kazekage's office, he told them. Ah, Naruto-kun, Yujito, Fu, Temari, and Tsunami whined while they started to pout. Naruto couldn't help but laugh and gave each of them a kiss on the forehead. Don't whine, Tenchis. I'll treat you all equally, and I never break my promises now, do I? He asked them, and they shook their heads. Now be good girls and head to the other room, okay? And wear something sexy, he said, getting blushes out of all of the other girls, and they ran to the room. Kiyomi grinned but then eeped when Naruto lifted her up bridal style, and he had a look of lust in his eyes. Now Yomi-chan, it's time for you to make me happy, he says as he locks lips with her, and she returns it while he leads her into their room. Said male blonde grins back. I could say the same to you, Tima-chan. He says. What do you say we put that pretty mouth of yours to use, eh? He asks. Temari's response by pushing him on the bed, getting between his legs, grabbing the lace on his shorts and giggling while she undid the lace and started to pull them down slightly. She licks her lips when she saw how big his erection was. So big, she says, and then starts to use her tongue and lick around it, making Naruto shiver while she strokes it with one hand. After doing that for a few minutes, she kisses the tip of his cock and then enters it into her mouth. Naruto moans out in pleasure, while she sucked him off and pushed more of his member into her mouth. Naruto watches as she bobs her head up and down and felt a sensation coming from his manhood, and while he let out a grunt and released into Temari's mouth, his wind mistress swallowed his seed and continued to suck his while he released more into her mouth. Afterwards, Temari removed her mouth from his anatomy and licks her lips. You taste good, Naruto, she says while he pulls his shorts back on and pulls her on his laps and rubs her ass cheeks, making her shiver in delight. A grin appears on his face, and he turns her around and places her on her hands and knees and pulls down her panties, showing off her ass and wet womanhood. Naruto grins and places 2 fingers into her clit and rubs it back and forth while she moans out in pleasure. After that he removed them and licks the wet substance off his fingers. Sweet Naruto then looks at her ass and a gleam appears in his eyes. Time to see if Temari is a screamer like Tsunami-chan, he says in his mind, and spreads her cheeks apart and saw her final hole. He positioned the tip of his member near her rectum and poked it. Temari's eyes bulge out when she realized what he was gonna do. And Naruto-kun, wait! She cried out, and he stopped. Something wrong, Temari-chan? He asked. Please not back there. It won't fit. She asked, but Naruto grinned. Relax, Haim, I'll be gentle, he says as he enters the tip of his member into it, and she grunts and whimpers. Oh, Kami, please pull it out, Naruto. She started to beg but then gasped when he pushed more of his member into her backside. I want you to scream my name, Temari. I want you to tell me to pump my seed into your ass and that you like taking it in the back, he told her while speeding up, making her bite her bottom lip. Say it, he growled, and no, she whimpered, but then her eyes widen and she grabbed the sheets with her hands when he thrusts into her twice. Say it, Temari, he says a little louder this time. And no, I won't say it. She cried, but then she buried her head in a pillow and let out a muffled squeal when he starts to thrust into her repeatedly. Say it, Temari! Say it or I'll fuck you to the point where you won't be able to walk right for a month. He growled out as he increased the pace. Oh shit, I can't take this. She cried while tears streamed down her face and her body jerked back and forth. Then say it. Naruto roared and she gave in. Yes. Yes, Naruto-kun, I like being fucked in the back. Pump your seed into my ass. Please release into me. My ass is yours to violate until I pass out. She yelled and felt Naruto's seed enter her ass and the sound of Naruto grunting as he pumped more cum into her asshole. Naruto! She cried out when he released more into her, and she collapsed from the pain and pleasure. Both blondes were panting and Naruto removed his member from her ass and stroked it gently. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? He asked as he wrapped his arms around her waist and kisses her neck. No. She moaned out. Naruto then bit down on her neck, breaking the skin with his 4 canines and licks up the small drops of blood while some of his yukai enters the mating mark. He removes his canines from her neck and kisses her on the cheek. You are now my mate Temari, meaning no other man can touch you. I will treat you and the others equally, and I will never hurt you in any way, shape, or form. I'll treat you and my future mates like queens and spoil you rotten, he says as he caresses her stomach with his hands. She relaxed in the warmth of his arms and giggled when he trails his fingers across her well-toned stomach. I know you will, Naruto-kun, and I promise not to break your heart. You saved my brother from himself, and showed him the errors of his ways, and for that I thank you, she told him and turned her head around and kisses him fully on the lips. They stop kissing each other, and Naruto gives her a loving smile. Thank you, Temari-chan. I know you'd never betray me, he says and then pulls her closer and whispers into her ear. Just wait until next time, my wind goddess. I'm gonna enjoy violating that sexy ass of yours. You won't be able to walk right for a long time, he said and gave it a squeeze while she squeaked. Well, now it's time for me to play with Fu-chan and Yujito-chan. I'll see you later, Temari-heim, he says and kisses her on the forehead and then places her in her bed and Shusha to their room. Temari tries to lay back but then winces and rubs her ass. Damn you, Naruto, and your anatomy. I can't believe I let you do that to me, and what makes it worse, I enjoyed it. She finishes with a blush on her face and lays back on the bed and hugging a pillow to her body. Yujito and Fu's room. Naruto appeared in Yujito's and Fu's room, feels 2 pair of arms wrap around his neck, the other pair around his waist. He looked behind him to see a grinning Yujito with her hair down and wearing a purple bra with matching panties, and the same with Fu. Hey there, Foxy-kun, what took you so long? Yujito asks while Fu's hands trail around his chiseled chest and abs. Yeah, Foxy-kun, what took you? We were beginning to think you forgot about us, Fu said with a pout her face while Naruto chuckled. I would never do that to you too. How can I make this up to you, Himes? He asked them playfully. A grin appears on each of their faces, and then they pinned him onto the bed. Yujito held him by his wrists, and Fu slipped her hand into his shorts and strokes his manhood slowly while he groans. Fu licks her lips and pulled his shorts down, revealing his anatomy to his 2 future mates. Don't worry about making it up to us, Naruto-kun. We already have what we want in front of us. Now just relax, she says. Naruto and Tsunami went in a lip-locking session and their tongues battled while their hands roamed each other's bodies. Tsunami moves her right hand down to Naruto's shaft and strokes his jewels. Said blonde deepened the kiss and squeezed her ass tightly, making her moan in his mouth. He then pinned her against the shower wall and places both hands on her butt cheeks and picks her up. She wraps her legs around his waist and jumps a little when she feels his tool enter her pussy. Naruto then frees his lips from her and starts to kiss and lick her neck and starts to thrust into her slowly. Tsunami gasps and rears her head back while her body moved up and down. Oh my Kami, she moaned out when Naruto increased the pace a little. He then stops for a moment, and then places her on the wet floor and continues to thrust into her. He watches her jiggle as their bodies move back and forth. Naruto, I am gonna come, she says. Hold it in, Tsunami-chan, I'm almost there, he told her with grunts in between words. Tsunami arched her head back and they both cry out Naruto/Tsunami. They both cried out as they came together at the same time. Tsunami was panting slowly while Naruto helped her up and kisses her fully on the lips. You are so sexy when you're wet, Haim, he told her. Tsunami blushes and smiles at him, and you are the greatest man to ever come into my life, Naruto-kun. You have done so much for me and my family, and now it's my turn to return the favor. I love you, Naruto, and nothing will ever change that, she told him with much love. Thank you, Tsunami-chan. Now let's get cleaned up for real this time, he says while she giggles. Fine, but I'll wash your back first, she says, and he laughs. The 2 of them then proceed to clean each other. Time skip. When Naruto woke up, he was not surprised at all to find each of the girls on a different limb, or being as close as they could to him. He quietly made a clone and substituted himself to go outside and finally used the time he had to try and talk to the toads and see what they were going to do. He went out to a clearing that he thought was big enough for Gamabunta and quickly went through the hand signs summoning jutsu. When he finished, he had to move back quickly to make he wasn't accidentally stepped on. "Who summoned me?" He heard the summon boss yell out and grinned before yelling. "Hey Bunta! Long time no see." The toad turned around to see his favorite blonde. "Naruto, is that you? How have you been? We were just talking about you." Naruto stopped for a second. "What do you mean we?" he asked, confused. The giant toad moved until Naruto saw someone on top of his head, and when Naruto saw who it was, he froze and his anger started to boil. "By we I mean me and Jiraiya." The toad sage jumped off of Gamabunta and landed in front of Naruto. "So this is where you've been, Naruto. We've been looking for you. Now it's time to grow up, be a man and come back to the village." Time skip. When Naruto woke up, he was not surprised at all to find each of the girls on a different limb, or being as close as they could to him. He quietly made a clone and substituted himself to go outside and finally used the time he had to try and talk to the toads and see what they were going to do. He went out to a clearing that he thought was big enough for Gamabunta and quickly went through the hand signs summoning jutsu. When he finished, he had to move back quickly to make he wasn't accidentally stepped on. "Who summoned me?" He heard the summon boss yell out and grinned before yelling. "Hey Bunta! Long time no see." The toad turned around to see his favorite blonde. "Naruto, is that you? How have you been? We were just talking about you." Naruto stopped for a second. "What do you mean we?" he asked, confused. The giant toad moved until Naruto saw someone on top of his head, and when Naruto saw who it was, he froze and his anger started to boil. "By we I mean me and Jiraiya." The toad sage jumped off of Gamabunta and landed in front of Naruto. "So this is where you've been, Naruto. We've been looking for you. Now it's time to grow up, be a man and come back to the village." Naruto's eyes flashed red for a few seconds, and he growled at the toad sage. "Excuse me? Do you want to repeat what you just to me?" "I didn't quite hear you," he asked in a dangerous tone. Jiraiya blinked and repeated himself. "I said you need to grow up, be a man and come back to the village," he said again. Naruto's hair shadowed his eyes for a few seconds, and when he looked back up at him, his eyes were colder than ice and were red with slits. Before the pervert realized it, Naruto slams his right fist into the man's torso, causing Jiraiya's eyes to bulge and his body to hunch over. After that, Naruto reared his right foot back and planted a roundhouse kick directly into the porn writer's jaw and sent him flying into a tree. Jiraiya hit the largest tree hard and with a force that caused the tree collapsed and hit the ground, causing it to shake a little. In the house, the 5 girls were snuggling against the clone when they heard the ground shake. Kiyomi's eyes opened up instantly, and she sat up as did the other girls. "What the hell was that?" the 9-tailed vixen asked while the others looked around, and the clone's eyes widened and he trembled in fear. "Oh shit," he says, getting their attention. "Oibun boss is angry, scratch that, he's pissed beyond belief," he said, making their eyes widen. "Why is he so angry?" Fu asks. Apparently his so-called godfather Jiraiya just said something to him that pissed him off, and now Oibun is gonna kick his ass if not kill him, he stated. Kiyomi leaped off of the bed and looked out the window to see a pissed-off Naruto and Jiraiya, who was a few feet away from him on the ground clutching his torso and rubbing his jaw. The others appeared near the window and looked down as well. Fu's eyes were the size of dinner plates when she realized that one of the Sannin was Naruto's godfather. "Wait, I don't get it. If Naruto-kun's godfather is Jiraiya-san, why is he pissed off?" she asked, confused. "Looks like we're about to find out," Temari answered as they watched the event, with no one noticing that Kiyomi had mentally slapped herself as she forgot that the other girls hadn't been told the whole story and everyone who had cheated on Naruto. Gamabunta's eyes widened and his mouth was agape. His pipe almost fell out of his mouth when he saw Naruto knock Jiraiya into a tree. "Oh! Hey Gaki, what the hell was that for?" Jiraiya yelled at the blonde. "You should know what, you backstabbing asshole. You've got some fucking nerve telling me to grow up and be a man," Naruto answered in a voice filled with anger and rage towards the man that was not only supposed to be there for him when he was younger but had been one of the people to betray his trust and had an affair with Tsunade. Jiraiya was taken aback at his words while Gamabunta regained his composure, looked down and spoke up. "Hey Gaki, what's the deal? Why did you attack Jiraiya like that?" the Toad Chief asks, making Naruto look up at the Toad and then back down to Jiraiya. "So he never told you, Bunta?" he says, glaring at the sage, who cringed at his second apprentice's gaze. Gamabunta blinked and looked at Naruto and Jiraiya. "Tell me what? What the hell is he talking about, Jiraiya?" The toad asks, looking at Jiraiya suspiciously. It's nothing, Bunta, the brat's just throwing a fit like always, he told the toad, and once again Naruto's eyes flashed red and he snarled, revealing his long canines and flaring his chakra. Gamma Bunta tensed when he saw Naruto's chakra flare up, and it wasn't good. Throwing a fit? Baka, he's pissed beyond reason and is about to tear you a new asshole. Now tell me what he's talking about or I'll pop you like a zit, the toad boss demanded. That was when Kiyomi landed next to Naruto and stood by him. Yes, Jiraiya, tell the toad why your godson is about to tear you apart, she asks, making Jiraiya flinch while Bunta looked at Kiyomi and blinks. Godson? Wait a minute, who are you? Gamma Bunta asks. Kiyomi smirks and looks up at the toad. You should remember me, tadpole. I was the one who gave you that scar on your right eye, she answered. Bunta's eyes widen, as does Jiraiya's. KKQB? He stutters out and she nods, revealing her fox ears and 9 tails. It's Kiyomi, tadpole. Kyubi is a title, she answered, and that was when Jiraiya's chakra flared. How in the hell did you escape from the seal, you monster? He yelled, but then regretted it when Naruto's killer intent shot up and his eyes became crimson and his nails turned into claws. Don't you dare call my mate a monster, you piece of shit! Naruto roared out, making the man back away a little. And mate? Your mate's with her? What the hell's the matter with you? Are you stupid? She's the reason your father's dead, he yelled at the blonde. Shut up, you old fool, Naruto yelled. You know good and well that bastard Madara was responsible for that. Kiyomi looked down at the ground in shame and her ears fell down as well. You don't blame the sword for striking its target, you blame the wielder who's holding the sword, you dumbass, Naruto shouted back and wrapped an arm around Kiyomi's shoulders and let her bury her face into his chest. I don't care. She's responsible for the death of the one person who I thought of as a son, and now here you are comforting her like she's the damn victim, Jiraiya yelled, pointing at Kiyomi. Hey, we're getting off topic. Naruto, tell me why you are so pissed at Jiraiya and why Kiyomi is free? Yelled / asked once again. You want to know why I'm pissed at this pathetic excuse of Man Bunta? Well, there's actually 2 reasons, and I'll tell you what they are. The first reason being this asshole was supposed to look after me if anything happened to my parents, he said as he let go of Kiyomi. He promised my father that I'd be looked after and kept safe, he snarled out while the memories of the beatings and torture entered his mind and the fact that the women from that village treated him like trash and screwed him over by playing with his emotions. Tears formed in his eyes as all the negative feelings that he felt came out. He was supposed to be my godfather and protect me, but son of a bitch left me to the wrath of those fucking villagers and spent the first 12 fucking years of my life writing porno, peeking on women and being a fucking man whore. He abandoned me and dishonored the dying wish of my father, the so-called son he was so devastated to have lost. 12 fucking years of pain and suffering in that shithole, and not once did he help or come to see me, he yelled out while the tears fell from his eyes from remembering his childhood. Then Naruto looked back up, his eyes full of hate and anger, and if that wasn't bad enough, every one of my so-called friends, including this asshole, have betrayed my trust and act like I'm the one being childish. At Gamma Bunta's confused look, Naruto quickly explained all of the cheaters in Konoha and how they all betrayed his trust by having affairs, Jiraiya and Tsunade included. Kiyomi pulled him into a hug and wiped the tears from his eyes with one of her tails. Tsunami, Fu, Yujito, and Temari were shocked, saddened, and pissed at the man who was supposed to have been there for him, and even more mad at Konoha after getting the whole story of why Naruto decided to leave. Gamma Bunta was speechless for a while when he heard what Naruto had told him, and then he looked over at Jiraiya and gave the man one of the fiercest glare he's ever given anyone. Is what he said true, Jiraiya? Tell me you did not do that to Minato's kid and didn't check up on him once? And please tell me that what he said happened with you and the rest of the shinobi who were named did not actually betray his trust in such a way, he asked in a low yet dangerous voice, and Jiraiya looked away. Jiraiya, I'm not gonna ask you again. You better give me an answer, he demanded, raising his voice and letting the man know he wasn't in the mood for bullshit. Yes, Bunta, it's true, he said in a solemn voice. Gamma Bunta's eyes flared and he smashes his webbed hand into the ground near Jiraiya and causing the area around them to shake. After the shaking stopped, Gamma Bunta was trembling with fury, and if looks could kill, Jiraiya would be dead right now. Jiraiya, I don't know what to think of you right now. You've done some stupid things in the past, but this is beyond forgivable. And to think how Konoha as a whole has fallen if it letting scum like this become ninja. And I'm especially sad at how far you and Tsunade have apparently fallen if you did this to your own godson, he said in a hollow yet dangerous voice. Jiraiya gulps and tries to speak up. Please, Bunta, let me explain my reason. He never got to finish because he had to jump away from being sliced in half by Gamma Bunta's Tanto, which slammed down at Jiraiya's previous location. Reason? Reason? What kind of fucking reason do you have for abandoning your godson? Scratch that. What the hell were you thinking abandoning Minato's son? Had I known that or how terrible Naruto's life was going to be in that village, I would have squashed you like a bug and burned that village to the ground. He roared. Jiraiya was shocked and scared beyond belief. Bunta took a breather and gave Jiraiya a look of disgust. You are a disgrace to the Gama clan, Jiraiya. My respect for you and Konoha as a whole is gone, he said. Jiraiya couldn't believe what he was hearing. Be Bunta, he started to say until the Toad Chief gave him a glare that told him to shut up. Quiet, tadpole, I can't bear to look at you right now. As of right now, I'm nullifying your contract with the Toads. Do not summon me or the high-ranking Toads for anything until you make retribution with your godson and beg for forgiveness at Minato's grave. If you summon any of us without reconciling with us or Naruto, I'll kill you, he stated in a dark tone, making a shiver go up Jiraiya's spine. Gamabunta looked at Naruto and spoke up to him in a calming tone. Gaki, I hereby make you the new sage and permanent holder for the Toad contract. Only your family members or people you trust can sign it. Your father was the one man I respected. Hell, he was respected by all the Toads, especially with his honorable sacrifice. May he find peace in the afterlife. Now then, I believe you have a pervert's ass to kick, and as much as I would like to see you beat this fool into the dirt, I need to get going and inform to elders about Jiraiya's dishonorable actions. Gamabunta was about to leave when he thought of something else. Oh, and Jiraiya, be sure to tell Asuma and Tsunade that the slugs and monkeys will hear about what they did as well. The Toad boss then disappears in a puff of smoke before Jiraiya could protest. Jiraiya stood in his spot speechless. Naruto, not wanting to deal with the man at the moment, turned around to leave when he heard Jiraiya mumble something. What was that, old man? He turned around to see Jiraiya walking towards him. I said you're not going anywhere till I seal that monster back into your stomach and take you back to Konoha. Naruto froze at this, as did Kiyomi, the only difference being that Naruto stopped in rage. Say that again. Jiraiya took a scroll out from his pocket, opening to reveal a bigger scroll. I said you're not going anywhere till I seal that monster back into you and drag your pathetic ass back to Konoha, he said louder this time, looking Naruto in the eyes. Naruto growled and his eyes turned crimson. He looked at Kiyomi and motioned his head for her to go back to the house. She nodded and ran towards the house to get their supplies and make sure everyone got as far away from the fight and fast. When she started to run, Jiraiya started to run after her, only to be stopped by Naruto, who appeared in front of him and cut him off. I don't know why you're being a complete idiot and protecting her, Naruto. Now move, he ordered, but was shocked when he saw Naruto's nails grow longer and sharper, his birthmarks deepened, and a dark red chakra cloak started to form around his body. Jiraiya hopped back a couple of times, shocked beyond belief. If the Kyuubi is out, why can Naruto still draw out its power? He thought for a second before smirking. If he draws out more than 3 tails, he'll lose himself. Then I'll suppress his chakra, and while he's out, I'll tie him up and go grab the Kyuubi. Hopefully, being outside of Naruto has weakened her. Naruto stopped at 3 tails for a while and looked at Jiraiya. You ready, old man? I hope you have regrets when I kill you, because you don't deserve to die peacefully. But then again, considering you're going to hell, I don't think that will be likely, he said in a serious tone with no emotion on his face. That was when 3 extra tails sprouted from the cloak, making the man's eyes widen in fear, but regained his composure. I know I'm eventually going to die, Gaki, but it won't be today, and you won't be the one to end me, Jiraiya replied as he clapped his hands together and started to gather nature energy to try to go into sage mode, only to find he couldn't. What the? Why can't I go into sage mode? He asked himself, and then heard Naruto chuckle. You know what, Jiraiya, instead of finishing you off with the power I was given by Kiyomi-chan after I became her mate, I have a better idea. I'll defeat you with the very thing we learned from the Toads, but unlike you, I managed to master it. Naruto says as the cloak recedes, which returns his features to normal and starts to gather nature energy. Jiraiya had a look of disbelief on his face when he saw Naruto gather nature energy without the assistance of the elder Toads. A powerful wind blew past them, and then it died out. Naruto then looked up at the bewildered old man. He had reddish-orange pigment markings around his eyes and horizontal, golden slitted pupils. I am possible why you mastered sage mode? Jiraiya asked, horrified, only for Naruto to smirk and suddenly disappeared from Jiraiya's view. Jiraiya's body hunched back and felt a punch that felt like it had the strength of a bijou behind it. He looked down and saw Naruto's fist buried in his gut, and he coughed up blood. He took a few steps back and held his stomach with both hands while blood dripped from his mouth. He looked up only to see Naruto gone once again and looked around frantically. Said blonde was behind Jiraiya, his back turned and gazing at the forest. You're getting slow, old man, Naruto stated, and out of reflex, Jiraiya delivered a backhanded strike with his elbow, only for it to phase through Naruto, and wondered what happened, only to see Naruto fade away. Like I said, Naruto stated as he was now in front of Jiraiya with his fist cocked back. You're getting slow. He then sent his fist towards Jiraiya's face, but he manages to leap away. When his fist makes contact with the ground, an explosion of dust and debris occurs and the ground shakes. Jiraiya manages to land on a tree branch with a still shocked look on his face. I don't believe this. When did he master Sage Mode? He never showed any signs of completing it during our training in NT Mayaboku. It's simple, old man, Naruto said, which made Jiraiya's eyes widen, and he turned his head to see Naruto standing on a tree branch and leaning against the tree with his arms crossed. You were too busy peeking on women, writing your smut, and ditching me to know whether or not I completed it, and Fukusaku and Shima-sama said that I was their best student in learning how to use it fully, especially when I didn't need them to assist me to gather nature energy, he said with a smirk on his. They even commented that I was even better than you in learning their lessons. Kind of sad, really, since you spent nearly half of your life learning from them, and still haven't completed it. A scowl formed on Jiraiya's face. Don't get cocky. While Sage Mode is powerful, that doesn't make you unstoppable. It takes a lot of concentration to keep the technique steady, and if my memory serves me correctly, that's something you lacked. He taunted while Naruto rolled his eyes. Oh please, your little taunts won't work on me, and you know that crater I formed with my fist? That wasn't even a quarter of the power I have at my disposal, he said, making the man's eyes widen. If I wanted to, I could level this entire forest with a single Raisin Shuriken. Now enough talk. He then stood straight up and cracked his knuckles. Let's see how strong you are without the toads or Sage Mode making you up, he said with a murderous look in his eyes. Jiraiya cursed and leapt out of the tree, performing a series of hand seals. Katon, Karawendan, Fire Release, Flame Dragon Missile. He unleashed a powerful stream of red-hot fire at Naruto, who smirks and leapt into the attack, making Jiraiya's eyes widened. Has he lost his mind? Leaping into a powerful fire jutsu like that is suicidal. Even before he could finish the sentence, Naruto went through the flames and wasn't singed whatsoever, shocking Jiraiya. Before the man could react, Naruto swung his fist at his face, but Jiraiya tilted his head away to avoid the punch. Said blonde smirked, which confused Jiraiya until the man felt a force hit him square in the jaw and sent him flying backwards and crashing into the ground. Naruto landed on the ground while Jiraiya got out of the crater with blood dripping down his busted lip. You're probably wondering why you were struck in the jaw even though you avoided the punch. You see, Jiraiya, the aura of a sage's senjutsu chakra can also become an extension of my body, and only those who have trained and mastered senjutsu can see it. So even if my punches and kicks miss you, the force behind them can still cause damage, and if any of them were to actually make physical contact with your body, you'd end up being crippled, so facing me in close combat is out of the question. He finished with an evil grin on his face. Don't count me out yet, brat, he said, and performs a snake's seal and adds chakra into his hair, making it lengthen and sharpen. Ninpu, Renjishigami no Jutsu, Wild Lion's main technique. His hair extended and morphed into the mouth of a roaring lion with his maw opened. Naruto scoffs and channels wind chakra into his hands, crossing them together with his index and middle fingers extended. Futon, Dai Kaze no Yaiba. Wind release, great wind blade. He instantly swung his arms outwards in a slashing motion. Two powerful blades of wind descend towards the maw of hair, and when they made contact, the blade shredded the technique apart, surprising Jiraiya since the technique was supposed to be stronger and sharper than steel. He cancelled the attack and slammed his hands into the ground. Doton, Doria Heki. Earth release, earth mud wall. A large wall of earth rose up from the ground in front of Jiraiya and blocked the wind attack. Naruto took this opportunity to dash towards the earth wall at great speed with his fist reared back. When he gets close enough, he punches the wall and instantly destroys it. The force of the attack was so great that it sent Jiraiya flying backwards, but he flips backwards and onto his feet, skidding to a halt. He saw Naruto charging right at him, leaving a trail of after images. Jiraiya unleashed a Karawendan at Naruto once again, while Said Blonde's cheeks bulge and fires a powerful stream of water which dissipates the attack and heads towards Jiraiya and hits him full force, sending him crashing through 3 trees and hitting the ground hard. Jiraiya coughs up blood and slowly gets up, only to see Naruto ascend towards him with a larger version of the Rasengan in his right hand looming over his head. He was about to jump out of the way, but his feet were sinking into what looked like the Yomi Numa, swamp of the underworld. Oh no, he thought in horror and fear as Naruto slammed the futon, Udama Rasengan, great ball spiraling sphere, into the man's stomach and grinding into his body. Back at the house, Kiyomi and the other women as well as Lee and Shino got everything packed up and were outside fully dressed. The house suddenly poofed away into a large scroll as Kiyomi instantly sealed it up and placed it onto her back. That was when an explosion of chakra and wind-natured chakra swept across the area and they were forced to cover up their faces to avoid the debris. They looked up once it ended. Looks like Naruto-kun is finished dealing with the old man, Kiyomi said as she saw Naruto walk out of the forest, dragging an unconscious, cut up, and bleeding Jiraiya towards them with a calm expression on his face. He stopped for a moment, and his hand was enveloped in demonic chakra Naruto, and then looked up and down Jiraiya's body until he saw what he thought was a good spot for what he was about to do. He plunged his hand into the wound and pumped his chakra into Jiraiya's body. When he was done, he took his hand out and healed Jiraiya so there was nothing left. They all looked at him and say that he was back to normal. Well, he's never going to be a problem ever again, Naruto said, summoning a toad. Gamakichi, nice to see you again. I trust your dad already told you what has happened. The toad looked down at Jiraiya, glaring at the unconscious man. Yeah, Naruto, he told everyone. Naruto smiled at this. Okay, Gamakichi, I need you to do me a favor. Take this useless, shamed old man back to Konoha and tell the Hokage what has transpired and how you and the toads no longer serve Konoha. Got it? Oh, and I believe your dad said something about telling Tsunade that the slugs and monkeys would follow suit. Gamakichi smiled at this gladly. Naruto was all the toad had to say before grabbed Jiraiya and poofed away. When Gamakichi was gone, Temari stepped forward. Naruto-kun, I was wondering, how is Jiraiya not going to be a problem anymore just because he no longer has the toads? I mean, you even went as far as healing him, she asked, then thought for a moment. Wait, what were you doing before you healed him? Naruto smiled at this. I poisoned his body, so to speak, with my demon chakra, and as we speak it is slowly destroying his chakra network, slowly and painfully killing him, and nobody can do anything to stop it or help him, not even their Hokage, he said as he started to walk away and was quickly followed by his girls and the two former Konoha ninja. Kiyomi walked beside Naruto. So where to now, Naruto? She asked, curious. He continued walking and replied, well, the scent I smell is where I had planned on visiting anyways, so as for where we're going, well, we're going to pay the Mizukage a visit. In Konoha. Tsunade was pacing around her office, multiple things going through her head. She was thinking about what was the best course of action to take as things were getting worse in her village. She was thinking about how she could set things right and what caused it all in the first place. And lastly, she was wondering where Jiraiya was, as it had been longer than it should have been if all he was going to do was talk to the toads and see if they could help him find Naruto. She was taken out of her thoughts when she heard a loud poof and Gamakichi appeared with Jiraiya and was shocked when the toad just tossed him onto the floor. Gamakichi, what the hell happened to Jiraiya? She was surprised when she looked up to meet a pair of angry eyes. Gamakichi? The toad never took his eyes off her. Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, he snorted. What used to be considered an honorable village by the toads is now a disgrace. I have been sent here to bring back this dishonored man and to give a message. The toads no longer serve Konoha and will not be here should you ever require assistance. If you're wondering why, you will have to ask the useless Sannin lying before you what has transpired when he awakes, as I don't wish to be here longer than I need. And also my dad told me to tell you that the slugs, monkeys, and snakes are going to be told what you all did. So you and Asuma better say your goodbyes. He then snarls, not that they'll think twice about leaving once they hear how far this village has fallen. And who knows, maybe if they're feeling generous the monkeys will stay with Konohamaru. We're still not sure what we are going to do about Kakashi's dogs since they are too attached to him. And Guy's turtles are no issue since Guy hasn't done anything wrong. Goodbye and good riddance. With that said, the toad poofed away and all that was left were two Sannin, one unconscious and the other even more confused than before. In Konoha. Tsunade was currently in the hospital, pacing back and forth trying to figure out what she could do to help her teammate. I don't know what Naruto did to Jiraiya, but it's killing him, and if I can help him I don't think he will last much longer, she thought, worried. She was surprised because he had seemed fine when he got back. It even looked like he had been healed despite the gashes over his stomach. She still couldn't forget how scared she had been when he started screaming. It was still on her mind and she still couldn't think of what she could do to help him get better when she found out what exactly Naruto had done to him. Flashback. Tsunade had just gotten over her shock of what Gamakichi had said to her before he left and ran up to check on him. He seemed fine until he suddenly started screaming as if he was in unbearable pain. She did another check on him and still couldn't find anything wrong. Shizen, I need a stretcher and a room immediately. She screamed out while she was trying everything she knew to try and help ease her teammate's pain. She was starting to get tears in her eyes up when she couldn't find anything and his pain seemed to be getting worse with every passing second. Shizen rushed into Tsunade's office with 3 other medics. They put Jiraiya on the stretcher, and they all stopped when Jiraiya suddenly stopped screaming. They all waited in silence to see what would happen next. When he slowly came to, he looked around weakly, stopping when he saw Tsunade. Tsuhaim, why are you crying? Tsunade looked down and got ready to punch Jiraiya to the floor but stopped when he started hacking and coughing. She stopped her punch inches away from his face and sighs. Jiraiya, what happened? Do you remember anything that happened after you went to speak to the toads? Gamakichi said that the toads are no longer loyal to Konoha and that the slugs and snakes would hear about what we did along with every other summon in this village besides Kakashi's dogs and Guy's turtles. What did you do? She asked him, concerned and confused. Jiraiya shot up at this when he recalled what happened to him with the toads and his fight with Naruto. It was Naruto. Tsunade. I went to go talk to the toads to see if they would help us find him, but while I was on Gamabunta he was summoned. I sat there confused when I heard Naruto yell out to Gamabunta. I tried talking to him, and he became unstable and started yelling at me. Then when Gamabunta found out about why Naruto left the village and how he grew up, Bunta became cold, and told me I was no longer allowed to summon the toads. Jiraiya took a breath and continued. Then I was shocked to find out Naruto had released the Kyuubi. I tried to convince him to let me reseal her, but he became enraged and brutally attacked me without mercy. He then thought for a second and looked at her. I think she might have started controlling him while he was here in the village, and that's why he left, and it's gotten worse since he released her, he told her, but then grabbed a bowl that was next to his bed and threw up. Noticing some blood in the bowl, he looked over to Tsunade. What's wrong with me, Tsunade? I feel like shit, and I don't know why, but I think Naruto did something to me. She looked away and thought for a moment. I've been trying to figure that out since you were brought back, Jiraiya. Think hard. What's the last thing you remember before passing out is? He closed his eyes and felt a huge surge of pain in his chakra coils and gasped in pain. I think he might have poisoned my chakra coils, finally spent of the energy he had at the moment. Jiraiya passed out. Little did they know someone had been listening in on their conversation and ran to tell the others what she had heard. Flashback end. Everyone who had been denounced by Naruto had been called to Tenten's house, telling them she had to talk to them, and all had arrived except Sasuke. Kiba was finally fed up of waiting and got up. Are we actually going to do anything here? Hinata grabbed his leg and pulled him down as Tenten walked into the room. She gave Kiba a little glare and took a sigh. Okay guys, I already talked to Niji, and we have come to a conclusion, but first we want to see if anyone else has too. She took a quick look at everyone who else thinks that they know why the village has gone to shit as well as our lives. As she expected, Tenten sighed when everyone raised their hands and even saw what looked like tears coming from a few of the girls, but mostly from and Hinata. How many of you think any of it has to do with our choices and what we did? She was a little surprised to see a couple of hands still up. The ones who still had their hands up were Hinata, Chuji, Enko, Irika, and Shikamaru. Tenten was now a little relieved to see not everyone in the group was completely ignorant or heartless. She looked at Kurenai, Asuma, Yamato, Shizen, Ino, Kiba, Hana, and Kakashi. Why do you seven think your actions had nothing to do with the way the village is now? She asked, annoyed. Kakashi was the first to speak, even though he was still reading his book, something the group taking responsibility for their actions couldn't believe, especially after Naruto had ripped out the Sharingan that Kakashi had been with for years. And even though he didn't show it, Kakashi was still furious at Naruto for what he did, and that after Tsunade was not able to give Kakashi a new eye as it never worked. Because we have no reason to believe it's our fault, it's obvious how unstable he is after the actions he took against us. And those girls he was with don't seem to be helping him. In fact, they seem to making him worse, he replied in a bored tone, still reading his book, but was surprised when Niji appeared behind him and grabbed his book, then tossed it to Tenten, who started ripping the book to pieces and was enjoying the view of Kakashi crying over his beloved book. After she was done, she took a deep breath as she rubbed her eyes. Well, maybe you'll change your minds once you hear what happened to Jiraiya. Everyone tensed up at this and remained silent. Jiraiya had gone to the toads to talk to them and see if they could help when Gamabunta was summoned. While Jiraiya was on him, they were both surprised to find Naruto in front of them. So Jiraiya tried talking to him, and when he pissed Naruto off, he told Gamabunta about his childhood and how he was raised. Gamabunta became very upset with Jiraiya and said he was no longer allowed to summon the toads, and when Jiraiya still wouldn't leave Naruto alone, he was nearly beaten to death and had his chakra coils poisoned. She stopped and let everything sink in. She looked everyone over and was about to continue when Kiba spoke up. Well, what the hell did he do or say to Naruto that got him so pissed off? Tenten remained quiet at this and lied that I don't know. Shikamaru looked at Tenten suspiciously. All I know is that at the moment, I don't think even Tsunade will be able to heal Jiraiya. And that's not all. The village has lost the toads, and Tsunade was told that the slugs and snakes were next, and that pretty much every summon in this village would be gone except guys turtles. Everyone was shocked at the news, and Tenten looks over to see Anko looking worried. Tenten then looked at group that believed they had nothing to do with the state of the village. So what do you think now? Still think Naruto's current state has nothing to do with the way he was treated here? Yamato spoke up this time. I'm not sure about you guys, but I think this proves he has become even more dangerous than he was before he left, and it wouldn't surprise me if the council decides to put a bounty on his head. Asuma, Kakashi, and Kurenai all nodded their heads in agreement, while Shizen, Ino, Kiba, and Hana looked to be deep in thought. Hinata, and Anko looked to be in tears, while Irika and Shikamaru looked ashamed. Chuji, on the other hand, became furious at the four adults, stomped over to Yamato, and grabbed him by his collar. Are you that fucking heartless? Or are you completely blind? His hand became bigger, and as he was about to launch Yamato out of the building, he stopped himself. No, I'll let you see for yourself how things are only going to get worse. But I hope by the end of it you've seen what you did, and how the village's state is also the result of your actions as well as all of ours. Chuji let Yamato go and walked out. Was right behind him. Then everyone else left, some thinking of how they could Naruto to forgive them even a little, some thinking of what they should do, and some thinking what was the point of the meeting anyways. With Naruto's group. Naruto, Lee, and Shino were all sitting it being their turn to watch for enemies while the girls were getting some rest, so I was wondering what exactly made you two want to leave Konoha? Naruto asked, starting up conversation. The two simple looked at each other, and Shino was the first to speak. We had noticed your change almost immediately after Sakura, and once we saw and found out why you had changed, we were shocked that our friends had stooped so low and completely disregarded your feelings and had talked to the Hokage shortly after to see about switching teams. He then sighed in annoyance at the memory. But at the beginning she was ignorant, and told us we were worrying about nothing and that you would get over it. We kept trying as things got worse, and once when we both had seen enough we threatened to quit being shinobi if she didn't let us switch teams. She gave in once she realized we were serious, but when it was all over and done with you had already left, and we became so disgusted with the village we just decided to leave Shino's side and finished. Naruto thought even less of Konoha, or at least its Hokage now, as he heard their story and looked over at where the girls were sleeping. Lee broke the silence this time. So Naruto-san, what do you plan on doing now? Naruto looked at the two guys and gave them a real foxy grin. Well, first I have to search for the rest of my mates, and then if things go as planned I'll have my own village. Lee and Shino looked at each other. Well, how many are left? Naruto reached into his pocket to check the rings when he realized something and face-palmed himself. I'm such an idiot. Lee and Shino were confused. What? What's wrong? Naruto sighed and looked at the rings in his hand. I've been forgetting to give my girls their rings. He quietly walked over to the sleeping girls and slipped a ring onto each of the girls who hadn't yet received one. Pink for Tsunami, yellow for Temari, brown for Yujito, and green for Fu. He gave each of them a kiss on their cheek and walked back over to the guys. Well, it looks like I'm halfway done, and if I'm correct we're not very far from the next two, he said, smiling. With Naruto's group. Most of Naruto's girls were relaxing while Lee and Shino went to get food, and Naruto and Kiyomi were slowly training Tsunami to gather her newfound chakra that she had received after being with Naruto. Can you feel anything, Tsunami-chan? He asked her while she was sitting down concentrating. He watched her as he suddenly felt a small but noticeable pulse from her, as she jumped surprised at the new feeling. Was that chakra that I just felt, Naruto-kun? She asked, jumping up and smiling and then hugging him when he nodded happy for her. Kiyomi smirked, deciding to mess with her. I wouldn't be celebrating just yet, Tsunami-chan. You still need to harness it and learn to use it for battle. Tsunami looked over and smiled playfully before looking over to Naruto. Yes, I know, but I'm sure with such a smart and talented teacher I'll get it down in no time, she replied, not letting Kiyomi ruin her good mood. She then looked at Naruto and whispered in his ear, essentially, right now are you Takuen? She finished smirking at him. In Konoha, Hokage's office. The village was no longer in a state of panic, as Tsunade has finally gotten the civilians to calm down. Unknown to the most of them though was that the village was just barely getting by. On another note, every time one of the nurses asked about Jiraiya and what they should do, she told them to just make sure he was comfortable, and if anything happened to call her. Looking out her window at the village, she sighs. Is it our faults that the village has fallen so far? She turns back to her desk and thought, if grandfather or sensei saw us now, what would they say? Would they be mad at us and the village or Naruto for his actions? She looked down and smiled weakly. I know what the village did to Naruto growing up wasn't okay, but that doesn't excuse his actions and him deserting the leaf. And I don't know why the toads and slugs got so mad after being told everything, especially how me and Jiraiya weren't there for Naruto growing up. Jiraiya was too busy with his spy network for Naruto, and as for me, she faltered for a second, trying to think of a good reason. I was still getting over all my sorrows and helping Shizen with her medical training, she told herself, nodding, but whether she wanted to admit or not, even she knew that was not a good reason but a very good excuse. She looked up and called an Umbu. Recognizing Yamato, she spoke quickly. Yamato, I need you to get me Asuma, Kakashi, Kurenai, Anko, Hana, and Irika. And when you do, I would like you to come back as well, as this meeting will require your presence as well. When she finished, Yamato merely nodded before leaving to do the task given to him. Tsunade looked up again. Shizen, get in here. With Ino and Shikamaru. Ino and Shikamaru were walking though the village, trying to clear their heads and go over all that has happened lately and try to come to terms with everything. Well, they would, but Shikamaru was currently in deep thought, not even noticing Ino trying to get his attention until pay attention to me when I'm talking to you. Shikamaru heard, snapping out of his thoughts just in time for Ino to hit him over the head. He looked up at her, annoyed. What was that for, you troublesome woman? Ino looked ready to hit him again before taking a deep breath. Well, at least now I have his attention, she thought to herself. I was trying to ask you a question, but you were so deep in your own thoughts you weren't paying attention again, she said, annoyed, only to look at him calmly. What were you thinking about anyways? She asked, curious. Shikamaru only sighed and rubbed the now sore spot on his head. I was thinking about the meeting Tenten called everyone to. I have the feeling she was leaving some details out, more specifically the fight with Jiraiya and Naruto, he replied, looking up at the clouds. Ino looked at him, puzzled with this, but why would she do that? I mean, anything that has to do with Naruto would be good information for all of us to know, right? She said, convinced of her own motives for the blonde rogue. Shikamaru sighed. That's what I was thinking about when you decided to hit me, he said, looking at her deadpan only to see her roll her eyes at him. Well, then you should have told me that instead of outright ignoring me, Baka. She yelled at him again, hitting him, but not nearly as hard this time. She thinks for a moment, but if she is hiding something, what exactly do you think it was she hid, Shikamaru? Said boy only looked at her, finally serious. I can think of a few theories, but I'm not positive about any of them, he told her, serious, and looked over to see her, surprised to see him thinking this hard about anything. She thought for a moment to herself, maybe we could just go and ask Tenten herself? She said as if it was the simplest thing in the world, looking over waiting for his reply. He only nodded, keeping his thoughts to himself. Sure, since I can't seem to think of anything myself, I guess if we're lucky once she sees that we're onto her, she'll just admit what she was hiding, he said, getting up and heading to Tenten and Niji's place, right next to him. 3 minutes earlier with Tenten and Niji. Tenten was training hard with her boyfriend but was slowly starting to get annoyed as she noticed his mind seemed to be elsewhere, most of the time with him standing still for a minute or two while thought. Finally giving up and growling annoyed, she spoke up, okay Niji, since you're obviously too preoccupied to take training seriously right now, why don't you tell me what is on your mind? Niji sighs and looks over to his partner Tenten. Why did I get the feeling you were withholding information from the rest of us at the meeting? He asks her, getting straight to the point. Tenten mentally slaps herself, forgetting that it is very hard to hide things from the Hyuga. And if he caught on to me, then Shikamaru probably did too. Meaning I can be expecting a visit from him, and soon. She walks over to him and motions for him to sit down next to her. Waiting till he does so, she whispers into his ear, before I tell you, can you use your Bikugan and make sure no one else is around? I don't think this information was supposed to be known by anyone besides Lady Tsunade and Jiraiya. Niji merely nods and checks the area quickly before looking back to Tenten and nodding once more, letting her know the coast was clear. Tenten looks over to him and speaks quietly and seriously, well, you know how we were told that Naruto released the Kyuubi, and that she was one of the women with Naruto who helped fight the groups sent after Naruto. Niji nods at this, letting Tenten continue. Well, I guess that after Gamabunta left, Jiraiya was so pissed off that he was still underestimating Naruto, and even threatening to seal Kyuubi back into him after he knocked Naruto out, and that then he would drag him back to Konoha even without the Toad's approval. Niji's eyes grew wide at this before he scoffed. Has he really become that senile that after seeing what Naruto and his group did to the others, he thought he could still treat Naruto like a child and not expect retaliation? Tenten nodded slowly, and that's not even the worst part. According to Jiraiya, it wasn't even close to being a close fight. I don't think he even scratched Naruto. From what I heard, Naruto was merely playing with Jiraiya before he finally knocked him out. After that was when Naruto poisoned his chakra coils and healed Jiraiya before sending his body back to Konoha with the Toad's message. With Tenten finished, Niji just sat there for a moment, letting it all sink in before speaking. I can't believe Naruto was hiding all this power from us. I knew he was strong, that much was obvious after he defeated the Akatsuki, but this is something entirely different. Tenten only nodded in agreement before she saw Niji looking past her. She turned around to see Shikamaru and Ino walking towards them, and sighed, knowing what they wanted. I should have just waited till they got here. Then I wouldn't have needed to tell the story twice, she thought mentally before turning to talk to them, staring warily at Ino, hoping that after Tenten was done, Ino could be part of the group who now saw everything was caused because of them. With Hinata and Kiba. Kiba sighed, annoyed, as he was still trying to get Hinata to cheer up. She was really depressed after coming back from the failed mission of trying to get Naruto to return to Konoha, and after the meeting they all had with Tenten, she was considerably worse. He walked over to where she was sitting in their room and sat beside her. Hinata, how long are you going to be like this? I mean, I know it sucks that Naruto is being such a prick and how he deserted us, but crying like this isn't going to make things better. He said, hoping to get a response, and he did, but not the one he was expecting. Kiba suddenly felt his cheek sting, followed by having the wind knocked out of him, and looked up as he was on his knees trying to get his breath back. What the hell, Hinata? However, he got quickly relaxed after seeing the look of rage in her eyes. She stood up and looked down at the man. No boy, that she was stuck with. What's wrong with me? What's wrong is that I still can't believe how you and the others continue to blame Naruto when you are the ones being selfish. She screamed in loudest tone she has even used in her life. Slowly getting back on his feet, Kiba looked at Hinata with a mixture of anger and confusion and spoke at her without yelling but still showing his anger. You're still defending him. He was the one who betrayed the village. He was the one who allowed those whores of his to brutally attack you and the others. He turned his back on us, the village, and you. So why do you still continue to defend him? Kiba finished yelling at the end before he looked down as his anger dissipated to see her looking down with what appeared to be tears running down her cheeks. She slowly looked up, anger and pain in her eyes while the tears continued to flow because He deserves it. The only reason he betrayed us is because we all betrayed his trust first. We all knew what his childhood was like and how much he wanted to be loved and cared about. He thought that we all cared for him and gave us his heart, hoping we would do the same. And how do we repay him? By breaking his heart into pieces one by one until there was nothing. She fell to the ground as she sat with her knees and continued to cry, and because it's the least I can do for him. I loved him my whole childhood, and because I was always too shy to tell him how I felt he dated Sakura. But as selfish as it sounds, I was actually happy when Sakura dumped him for Sasuke. I even went as far as to finally confess my love to him, hoping that he would accept me, and he did. She laughs, disgusted with the memory, but not for what Kiba thought she did. She looks down angry at herself. I was so happy, Kiba. But when he had to go on that mission, I started having thoughts like, what if he finds someone else while he's gone? Or what if he actually didn't want to be with me but couldn't turn me down because he didn't want to hurt my feelings? She scoffs at herself, all of which I know now, and should have known back then, are things Naruto would never do. She then looks up at Kiba, and then you, Kiba, instead of reassuring me of the same, you saw Naruto being gone as the go-ahead to start flirting with me again. Combined with all the negative thoughts I was having before, along with your continuous flirting, I finally gave in, she said, looking down as Kiba smiled at the memory of that night they had their first time when a thought hit him. Yeah, I remember that night, Hinata. I thought it was so nice finally getting to be with you. I loved hearing you moan and yell my name as we took it slow like you wanted. Right before we took that final step. I still can't believe that you didn't even give Naruto your virginity and that I was the one to receive it instead. I thought that was so nice, he replies, sighing happily at the memory, not even realizing what he said before it was too late. This time Kiba didn't even get to scream as his groin was struck and he fell to the floor, looking up with tears in his eyes as he tried to hide the pain he was in. He looked up to notice Hinata wasn't there and was now at the door, not even looking at him. Don't remind me, she then turned around to look at him. You really don't care about the pain I'm in, do you? She turned back around looking out the door and before leaving spoke again, I'm going for a walk. Hopefully by the time I get back you will have grown up even just a little, and don't worry, there isn't going to be any permanent damage to your little friend Kiba. I'll be back in a couple hours. She finished before slamming the door, leaving Kiba on the floor in pain. And after all this, Kiba had only one thought on his mind, man, she is scary when she gets pissed. I'll have to remember not to get on her bad side anymore. Back in the Hokage's office. Tsunade was currently looking over all the people she had called. So I'm sure you're all wondering why I called you to my office. With that said, Tsunade didn't even notice some of the shinobi roll their eyes. I wanted to call you all here so we can all brainstorm on how to get Naruto back to the village, and after seeing how strong he's gotten, I can't rely on the younger ones anymore. She finished, waiting to see if any of them had any ideas. Iruka, Anko, and Shizen merely looked down, not saying a word, while Hana was discreetly trying to hide her emotions. The first person to step forward was unsurprisingly Kakashi, who cleared his throat before speaking personally. Lady Tsunade, I think we should go ahead and put Naruto in the bingo book. It's much too obvious now that if we just let him be, he will become a huge problem. While our former allies would like to go ahead and just place the blame on us once they see just how much Naruto has changed, I'm sure they will help us subdue him. Kakashi finished bowing his head and then sat back down. Tsunade put her hands onto her desk, thinking over what Kakashi said. I will admit that is a possibility, Kakashi, and I'm assuming Naruto would be a given S rank. The only question I have now is, do we put him down as a capture or kill on sight? Iruka, Anko, and Shizen looked up, their eyes widening at this. Hana, however, looked up angry and spoke her opinion. What? Why would you even consider marking him as a kill on sight? If you were going to go and do that, what was the point of even sending Kakashi and the others to go and try to bring him back? She yelled with the ferocity in her voice, making even Kakashi surprised. Once he thought about what she said though, I smiled. Were you that worried about me when I had to leave, Hana? I'll admit Naruto did a number on us, but you know I wouldn't just leave you alone like that, right? Hana promptly walked over to her boyfriend and bonked him on the head. It's not like that, you baka. She huffed, and once she was calm, turned back to the Hokage. What I meant is that why even try to retrieve him if you're just going to go around and put him in the bingo book? And furthermore, why even bother with that when I highly doubt anyone else in the elemental countries could stand up to him? Especially with the women he has at his side now. Why don't we just leave him alone and see what happens? She said, looking around to see everyone but Iruka, Anko, and Shizen looking at her like she was crazy. Tsunade cleared her throat, getting everyone's attention. That is completely out of the question. If we leave him be, there's no telling how much damage he will cause, and if there's even a small chance that he will go to a new village, or even turn the other villages against us more, we can't risk it. Shizen got up at this and walked over to her mentor. Actually, Lady Tsunade, I think what Hana said is a good idea. Why don't we just leave him alone? Even for a little while. Tsunade looked at Shizen confused, as did Yamato. Yamato spoke up before Tsunade had a chance. Shizen, how can you even agree with Hana after seeing what Naruto was capable and how he treated us at Suna? Shizen turned around and glared at him. She walked over to him and looked him in the eye because unlike you and the others I'm not afraid to admit that we screwed up, and it's our fault that Naruto left. Everyone went silent at this, right up until it registered what she said when all hell broke loose. Meanwhile, Sasuke Uchiha was walking in the Umbu prison following a guard to a cell. When they finally arrived, the guard let him in before leaving him with a warning before closing the door. Don't try anything stupid. Sasuke merely scoffed at the remark before he turned around and saw who he was looking for. Hello, Sakura. Back in the Hokage's office. The group of shinobi was still in Tsunade's office arguing over what they should do with Hana, Enko, Irika, and Shizen voicing the idea of leaving Naruto alone when someone burst into her office. Lady Tsunade, we have a problem. The arguing stopped as Tsunade sighed. What is it now? The Umbu guard flinched for a second before continuing in a calm tone. I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting, Hokage-sama, but Sasuke Uchiha has just been found dead. The room was deathly quiet at this before Tsunade snapped. What? When and how did this happen? The Umbu guard looked nervous. We don't know how he was killed yet, Hokage-sama, only that he was found dead in the Umbu prison, and that's not the worst of it. Tsunade sighed at this and felt an even bigger headache coming. What could possibly be worse? The guard stood his ground. It's Sakura Harino, Hokage-sama. She's gone. In Konoha. Tsunade and everyone currently standing in her office stared at the Umbu guard silent until Tsunade herself finally broke the silence. You want to run that by me again? I don't think I heard you correctly. Tsunade finished with a level glare. The Umbu felt very nervous under the woman's glare but cleared his throat before he spoke again. Sasuke Uchiha had gone to visit Sakura in her cell. We left them alone as he asked because we were outside the door and she still had her chakra sealed. He stopped for a moment to catch his breath. We were waiting outside the door when we heard a cry of outrage that sounded like Sakura, but knowing of her anger issues left them alone. It wasn't until we heard Sasuke scream out that we ran in there, but by the time we got the door open, the Uchiha was dead on the floor and the wall of her cell looked as if someone had either blown a hole or smashed their way out, and she was gone. He finally finished and waited to see what she wanted. Tsunade was going through the story in her head to decide her next action before speaking up. Is the Uchiha's head still intact? She asked to everyone's confusion. The Umbu was confused. Yes, it is, Hokage-sama, but why? Tsunade got up and started walking to the door. Shizen, get me Inoichi and tell him to get to the cell that used to hold Harino Sakura now. We only have an hour at the most before Sasuke's brain stops functioning. If we hurry, we can check his memories to see what exactly happened. Shizen jumped surprised at her tone but quickly recovered. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Umbu prison cell. Tsunade was already looking over Sasuke's body when Inoichi finally arrived. You called for me, Tsunade-sama? He asked, momentarily stopping at the sight of the dead Uchiha. Tsunade looked over her shoulder. Yes, Inoichi. As you can see, Sasuke has been killed and I would like you to go into his mind before it stops functioning so we can see what exactly happened and where Sakura is. The Yamanaka clan head simply nodded in understanding and moved over to the Uchiha's body before doing his clan's jutsu. Sasuke's last memory. Sasuke Uchiha was walking in the Umbu prison following a guard to the cell holding Sakura. When they finally arrived, the guard let him in before leaving him with a warning before closing the door. Don't try anything stupid. Sasuke merely scoffed at the remark before he turned around and saw who he was looking for. Hello, Sakura. He smiled, never thinking that she of all people would have fallen so far. Sakura instantly looked up at hearing Sasuke's voice and cried tears of joy seeing her boyfriend. Sasuke! You're here! Oh Sasuke, you won't believe what Tsunade did. Just because my parents had told us how Naruto was actually the Kyuubi, she killed them. She cried out in outrage. She had a furious look on her face and continued, after that meeting we all had in her office, and she told the rest of you to leave. She asked me why I had called him a demon, and when I told her, she sent an Umbu to get my parents, and when they finally got there and admitted to it, she sent a kunai through each of their skulls. She started getting tears in her eyes as she recalled the memory. She looked up at him again, but with a glare. This time she killed my parents. I was so angry that I wanted to kill her as well. I still do, she said with a dark look on her face that unnerved even Sasuke for a moment. She looked up at him. Finished, so you came here to get me out of here, right? You're a clan head. I'm sure you convinced the council to let me out, right? She asked, smiling with hope and love in her voice. Only for her smile to drop when she saw him smiling and chuckling. Sasuke shook his head and said quietly to himself, smartest girl of our class, and was an apprentice of a Sannin, but still so naive. It was loud enough for her to hear what he said. He looked her in the eyes and saw her look of confusion. You are a prime example of why ignorant civilians should not be allowed to be shinobi, Sakura. If you actually believe what your parents said about Naruto, then you are even stupider than I thought. He pulled a scroll out of his pocket and showed it to Sakura. What is this, Sakura? She looked at him confused. It's a sealing scroll, Sasuke-kun. I know that, so why are you asking? Sasuke held his hand up. He then unsealed the scroll and grabbed a kunai. What is this, Sakura? Growing tired of pointless questions, Sakura growled out, it's a kunai, Sasuke-kun. Why are you asking me all these stupid questions? She asked, losing her patience. Sasuke smiled, but the kunai came out of the scroll, Sakura. So according to your parents' logic, this isn't a kunai, it's a scroll. He said, seeing her realize what he was trying to say. That's different, Sasuke. That is an inanimate object. We're talking about a demon here, she said, holding back her anger as she started to hear what sounded like a whisper in the back of her head. Sasuke shook his head, looking down on her. No, Sakura, it's the same thing. Sakura finally had enough. Okay, Sasuke, I get it, whatever. Now when am I getting out of here? She asked, only to grow angry as Sasuke started laughing again. What are you laughing about now? She asked, having enough. Sasuke looked at her with pity. I didn't come to get you out, Sakura. To be honest, I could care less. You can rot in here for the rest of your life, raped by a cellmate, or even executed. I really don't care. Sakura looked horrified at what she heard. You can't be serious, Sasuke-kun, she said, getting tears. I thought you loved me? Sasuke laughed once more. I never loved you, Sakura. The only reason I even bothered screwing you was to hurt the dope. And once he left, you not only served your purpose, but I also grew bored of you. Sakura's POV. Sakura looked down, taking in everything he had said when she felt power going through her body like she had never felt before. How is this even possible? My chakra is sealed off, she thought to herself when she heard a voice. You like this power? I can give you more. A voice came in her mind. Who is that? Where are you? She said, looking around, confusing Sasuke. I am with you. I can help you. Give you the power to get revenge on the Hokage and kill this boy for betraying you. Make an example of him. All you have to do is let go and relax, the voice said in her mind. Sakura thought over of what the voice was saying before replying. Why should I trust you when I don't even know who you are? The voice chuckled darkly before replying. You do know me. You just never needed me till now. Look to your right. Sakura quickly did as she was told, only to see a mirror. But it's just me. Wait. She looked closer only to see it wasn't her. It looked like her, but her clothes were a darker shade and her eyes were black except for where her pupils should have been. Instead, they were a dark red. And the reflection suddenly smiled darkly at her before replying, I am you. Sakura gasped before she felt a tug on her mind, and when she finally opened her eyes again, she cried out at the sight that she was now looking at her body instead of looking at the reflection. The darker version of her smiled. So do we have a deal? Sakura looked over to Sasuke and thought about everything that had happened and weighed her choices before mirroring the other Sakura's smile. Yes. I agree. The dark Sakura smiled, using Sakura's body before she took advantage of the Uchiha's lowered guard and grabbed the kunai he had been holding before advancing on Sasuke as the memory started fading. End memory. Inoichi got up quickly before Sasuke's mind had shut down, effectively trapping him in there. He got up with a forlorn look on his face and looked over to Tsunade. Tsunade-sama, we have a problem. Back to Naruto's group. Naruto and his group were currently walking towards their next destination, which was Kirigakure. Kiyomi looked over to Naruto, smiling. So Naruto-kun, do you have any idea on who we are going to be looking for this time? She asked, even though if he didn't know she did. Naruto looked over at her and tried to play it cool. I have a few ideas, yeah. Kiyomi smiled at his reply while the others watched in amusement. Oh really, Naruto-kun? Would you mind sharing with the rest of us then? She smiled, trying to call his bluff. Naruto smiled and looked back to the others. Why ruin the surprise? Kiyomi smiled right. Tsunami walked over to Naruto and grabbed one of his arms, stopping him. Naruto-kun, do you think we could stop and rest for a moment before we get to Kirigakure? I would like to try and relax a little before we get there, and if possible go over my techniques again. She finished with a warm smile. Naruto looked around to see the others staring at him and looked back over to Tsunami before smiling. Sure, Tsunami-chan, we'll go ahead and rest for a bit. I'll get some food heated up for everyone to get re-energized. He quickly pulled out a sealing scroll before unsealing some fruit and small bars for everyone. Tsunami smiled and grabbed some fruit and started eating, as did everyone else, so they would not have to worry about eating again till they got to the next village. As everyone sat and ate slowly to relax, Tsunami finished her food before walking over to Naruto and hugging him, then whispering sensually into his ear, I'm ready for my training, Naruto-sensei. Naruto smiled playfully, putting Tsunami onto his shoulders before leaping to the nearest clearing and setting her down. Okay, Tsunami-chan. Since we are so close to the village, I'm going to go ahead and let you try the 3 basic techniques again, and each of them only once. I want to see how far you have come. He finished smiling. Tsunami smiled and nodded happily before closing her eyes to concentrate on her chakra. She started to feel something coming, and when it felt bigger she smiled and looked over to Naruto and nodded. He nodded back and smiled. Okay, Tsunami-chan, the first thing I want to see you do is the transformation technique, okay? He asked, getting a nod in response. Now I don't care who you change into, but remember that it should be someone you can remember every little detail about. Tsunami nodded as she already had a person in mind, and in a poof of smoke Naruto was happy to see a perfect copy of Tazuna standing in front of him. Naruto smiled and clapped. Very good, Tsunami-chan. He walked all around her to make sure there weren't any mistakes. And when he couldn't find any, he walked back in front of her and waited for her to return to normal before speaking up again. Okay, Tsunami-chan, the next thing I want you to do is the body replacement technique. But just to make it a bit harder, Naruto walked over and grabbed a decent-sized tree branch and showed it to her. I want you to concentrate on this rock, and when I throw it I want you to keep an eye on it, and as soon as you see it land, switch, okay? Tsunami looked really nervous with this task, as up till now she had only switched with objects that were stationary. She looked up to see Naruto smiling at her. Don't worry, Tsunami-chan. I believe you can do it. Seeing how much confidence he had in her abilities made her resolve stronger, as she nodded and concentrated on the branch in his hands. She watched as he threw it through the air, holding back so she could keep up with it, and as soon as she saw it land she concentrated, closed her eyes, took a deep breath and immediately felt a pull. She slowly opened her eyes to see she had been successful, and became overjoyed as she ran over to Naruto and hugged him. I did it. She yelled out, feeling proud of herself. Naruto smiled and hugged her back. See? I knew you could do it, Tsunami-chan. He said, proud of her, and happy she was so relieved. Now then, Tsunami-chan, I want you to try and do the shadow clone technique this time. But unlike the past couple of times, I really want you to concentrate and make no more than 10 clones, okay? He asked, seeing her nod. Everyone watching knew that, like Naruto when he was younger, was still having some trouble with chakra control. It was the main reason for Naruto to teach her the shadow clone technique instead of the regular one. She nodded and once again concentrated, and as she did she had slowly started the hand signs needed for the technique. Everyone watched in silence as she went through the signs until the silence was broken when she finished and yelled out, shadow clone technique. In Kirigakure, 2 redheads were sitting and talking in an office after they had heard that the person they were dying to see would arrive in a little over an hour. The Mizukage Maiterumi sat in her chair, sitting across from someone who had been in her village for a while now, as they waited for a certain blonde shinobi. She looked up to see the young girl deep in thought with a blush on her face and smiled. Now, why is your face almost as red as your hair, Amaru? Are you having dirty thoughts about our favorite blonde? She asked, playfully smiling at the young girl's reaction. Amaru jumped at hearing the Mizukage's voice and started sputtering, trying to recover herself. What? Of course I'm not. I was just feeling a little warm, she finished, trying to hide her face. The Mizukage smiled and walked over and sat next to the young girl. I know exactly how you feel, Amaru. Just thinking about Naruto-kun gets me all warm and fuzzy as well, she said, winking at her. Amaru blushed again. That's not what I meant. Mei simply laughed playfully at her and patted her on the shoulder. I know, Amaru. You don't have to wait much longer now, though. He's almost here. And from what I hear, he's no longer the innocent boy we knew years ago. In fact, I bet he'll know just what to do to rock your world. She finished whispering the last part into Amaru's ear, causing her to faint. Mei simply smiled before laying her down in a comfortable way on her couch before looking out towards her village's entrance. There. Now if I'm lucky she will be out long enough for me to get a taste first. Poor girl is so innocent, it would probably take her hours to get courage to do anything with Naruto. Mei thought to herself, smiling. Back to Naruto's group. Everyone had been surprised to see that the clearing was suddenly filled with at least 50 tsunamis. Naruto smiled and walked over to the original as the clones started dispelling in groups. When he finally got to Tsunami, he saw that she looked sad, that she couldn't do what was set for her until Naruto lifted her head up and looked her in the eyes. Now, Tsunami-chan. No need to look upset. While you may not have been able to do what I asked, this was still a lot better than your last tries. He finished, smiling at her. Tsunami looked happy at that and smiled. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled and picked her up before the chakra use would hit her and carried her to the others. Well, is everyone ready? At all their nods he smiled. Good, because we aren't making any more stops. Kirigakure, here we come,